Monster Synthesis Master. Chapter 1, Escaping at High Speed 4. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Hurry, run. We're free. The moment Lin Ke opened his eyes, he saw innumerable frail and skinny people dressed in coarse flax clothing escaping through the hole in the high-voltage power grid as if they had gone mad, much like wild horses that had thrown off their reins. A piercing bout of pain went through Lin Ke's mind, and a great deal of memories suddenly appeared within. His most recent memory was of himself repairing an aging game console that he had been using for 6 years when, all of a sudden, he started convulsing all over, and his vision blacked out. When he opened his eyes the next time, he had already come to this place. 2. This place seems to be destiny, muttered Lin Ke to himself as he rubbed his temples. 4. Scaffolding was built all around the ancient desert ruins. A yellowish-brown curtain covered the scaffolding, completely blocking it from view. The only thing exposed was a passage entrance over 2 meters tall which led to an underground crypt. Under the mercenaries' supervision, slaves entered the underground crypt to dig for treasures in the ancient ruins. The slaves then carried the treasures to the tents outside to carry out categorization and packing before military trucks finally transported them to the Wastelands Gang. 1. The camp was surrounded by and completely trapped within high-voltage power grids. However, for some reason, a violent earthquake had broken out in the underground crypt during the excavation process today. The dying screams of slaves could even be heard coming from within, as though there was seemingly something unclean inside the crypt. The camp's power supply was temporarily cut off, the power grid had also taken a break and stopped working. 2. As such, some slaves had taken advantage of the interval where a large number of mercenaries entered the underground crypt, and security manpower in the camp was insufficient to steal a desert jeep during the chaos. They had crashed it into the power grid and forcibly ripped open a hole, triggering the slaves' wills to escape. Lin Ke swiftly sorted out the memories rushing into his mind, and his expression changed into one of alarm. The Wastelands Gang alarmed a mysterious underground creature while excavating an ancient ruins site, causing the ground to cave in and quicksand to form. Isn't this the description of a major event in Destiny's background plot? 6. Beneath his feet currently was an exploration-style dungeon named Underground Crypt of Death that would form after the game officially began. All the zombies inside the Underground Crypt of Death were mercenaries and slaves that had zombified after their deaths. In other words, a large number of slaves had died in this incident. Lin Ke's scalp exploded, and he broke out into a cold sweat all over. He didn't have any time to think about why he had transmigrated into the game at all. There was only one thought in his mind right now: run. 9. Lin Ke looked around him. Various treasures excavated from the underground crypt were placed on an awning mat on the floor. He was a slave in charge of selecting and categorizing items. The mercenaries at the tent entrance had already left at some point, either to suppress the slaves or to battle in the underground crypt. With his sharp eyes and quick reflexes, Lin Ke grabbed a golden bangle and put it on his wrist. Then, he met up with the other slaves and ran outside together with them. 5. The ruins excavation site was in utter chaos. Gunshots rang out repeatedly in the underground crypt. In the camp, the mercenaries' gunshots also constantly rang in their ears. The mercenaries drove back and forth in cars that had been modified for use in the desert. In the back seats, machine gunners continuously raked their surroundings with gunfire. Escaping slaves fell in groups as though they were leaves suppressed by gales. There was no way one could outrun jeeps or quicksand with their legs, much less bullets. Lin Ke's figure came to a stop, and he stopped following the others to escape. Instead, he tiptoed and surveyed his surroundings. In no time, Lin Ke found a standalone mercenary camp in the northwest. Based on his understanding of the Wastelands Gang, the remaining vehicles must be parked there for sure. Several slaves wanted to charge into the camp to seize weapons, but the defending mercenaries' firepower suppressed all of them. The slaves collapsed to the ground while charging over. Corpses covered almost the entire mercenary camp's entrance. Some slaves that had managed to snatch weapons from the scattered mercenaries hid behind blockhouses and fought back with great difficulty, shooting out of the blue every once in a while. The rest of the time, they were suppressed by the other party's formidable firepower and didn't even dare lift their heads. However, Lin Ke weaved through the escaping crowds and quietly advanced toward the mercenary camp from the side. The mercenaries currently had their full attention on quelling the rioting slaves and rescuing the people in the underground crypt. Combined with the manpower shortage, there were practically no defenses set up at the side of the mercenary camp. Being small and skinny, Lin Ke hid behind blockhouses the whole way and actually managed to infiltrate the camp successfully while the mercenaries weren't looking. 2. Gunfire sounds directly opposite the camp were exceptionally intense at the moment. A hunched over Lin Ke hid in a corner of the camp. I've already ascertained the location of the cars, so I'm just missing the key now. Lin Ke was rather familiar with the operations and makeup of the Wastelands gang's mercenaries. After all, they were a force that he had farmed so many times in the past that he wanted to puke. 5. The mercenary teams were grouped by their tents, where each tent formed a 3-man team. Each of the 3 members performed their own roles, which were, the driver, main gunner, and machine gunner in charge of suppressive fire, respectively. Finding the key was neither a difficult nor an easy task. As long as he could enter the tents, he'd have a chance at finding a car key. Lin Ke began to take action, and he stealthily shifted about outside the tents. The camouflage-colored tents blocked light out completely, so it was impossible for one to see what was going on inside. Additionally, a mess of gunshots and explosions was currently taking place, so it was very tough for one to tell whether there was anyone in the tents. Should Lin Ke make a mistake in his guess, he would be delivering himself right into a trap. He crept up to the nearest tent. The moment he got near, he heard cursing and swearing from inside. That bunch of damned dogs! How dare they interrupt my afternoon nap? I'm going to kill all of you when I get out there. 7. Goodbye, and next, please. Lin Ke didn't waste any time. As the mercenaries carried out their riot suppression and massacre, several escaping slaves had already been gunned down. Combined with the sword of Damocles suspended over his head, i.e., the quicksand that might break out any time, Lin Ke didn't have much time left. 6. He circled around to another tent in the distance and listened carefully for a while but didn't hear anything. After a brief moment of observation, he lifted a corner of the tent flap and sneaked in at lightning speed. 1. Lin Ke's eyes swept across the interior, and he discovered that all of the owner's belongings were still there. He made haste and searched through them. On the table, in the clothes and trousers pockets. At last, he found a key in the pocket of a top. Got it! Lin Ke raised his eyebrows, and a look of joy came over his face. Practically at the same time, a line of text that only Lin Ke himself could see appeared in front of him. You've obtained Desert Jeep, Modified, Key 5. Hey? A system panel. Before Lin Ke could check it out, the heavy and solid footsteps of someone in army boots suddenly came from outside, and they were becoming louder and clearer. Someone's here. A violent shiver went through Lin Ke, and perspiration instantly drenched his back. His eyes swiftly swept across the tent interior. He practically couldn't find a place that he could hide in. Rustle. Someone lifted the tent flap roughly. The person stood at the entrance and took a sweeping glance at the inside, and then he stood still. Lin Ke, who was hiding under the bed, could only see a pair of black army boots at the entrance. Nervousness and unsettlement filled his heart. That person is standing at the entrance instead of coming in. Has he discovered something? 1. Lin Ke's brows knitted together tightly as he carefully thought back to his actions just now. He shouldn't have left behind any signs of his presence. The mercenary's eyes swept across the interior while he stood at the entrance. Then, he made a beeline for the clothes rack and rummaged about in the clothes pockets. After searching for half a day, the mercenary finally grew impatient. He grabbed the clothes and started to shake them. Damn it! Where exactly did that fellow put the key? 4. The cards, snacks, dagger, and photographs inside the pockets dropped all over the floor, but there was simply no sign of the key at all. F***ck. Where exactly has that wretched fellow hidden the key? Having failed at finding the key, the mercenary exited the tent while swearing angrily. 2. Lin Ke waited till the mercenary's voice faded completely before carefully climbing out from underneath the bed. He picked up a dagger, which was sheathed in a leather cover, along the way. You've obtained one sharp dagger. Next to the translucent notification in front of him was even the dagger's various stats. However, Lin Ke honestly didn't have the time to take a close look at the small dagger's stats at the moment. He lowered his head and glanced at the flax clothing he was wearing. There wasn't even a single pocket where he could store items on his whole body. In order to completely eradicate the possibility of slaves stashing treasures away when excavating the ancient ruins, the Wastelands gang had made all of them wear specially made flax clothing. To put it simply, it was a piece of flax fabric with 3 holes cut out for the head and arms to protrude from. Lin Ke didn't change his clothes or shoes because he had a small and skinny physique. There was a huge difference between his physique and that of the strong and muscular adult mercenaries. Not only would wearing such clothes and shoes not bring him any boons, but it would also affect his current speed. Thus, Lin Ke bit the bullet and stuffed the dagger into the crotch area of his trousers. Stuffing a blade into the crotch of one's trousers was something that nobody would favor. Despite the dagger coming with its own leather cover, Lin Ke, nevertheless, still felt a hint of coolness at his crotch. 7. Lin Ke lifted a corner of the tent flap and observed the outside. When he was sure that no one was outside, he left in a flash. To prevent loss and confusion, car keys were debossed with their corresponding vehicle number. A hunched-over Lin Ke circled around the camp fringes to where the mercenaries had parked the cars in the camp and began to search for a jeep numbered 777. 6. There were evidently many more enemies here than in the tents. Mercenaries hopped onto modified jeeps in groups of 2 to 3. The car engines roared to life, and they drove off swiftly, entering the desert to pursue the escaping slaves. The small and skinny Lin Ke deftly weaved through the parked jeeps, avoiding the mercenaries joining the battle while searching for his private jeep. Found it! Lin Ke's eyes swept to and fro, and he finally found the jeep with the car plate number 777. However, just as he was about to go over, another 2 batches of mercenaries showed up one after another and drove out in pursuit. Lin Ke didn't become anxious. Instead, he hid underneath the car and waited patiently. At times like this, the more anxious one became, the easier it was for things to go wrong. Lin Ke waited until the 2 batches of mercenaries had completely left before he climbed out from underneath the car. Then, as though he was a rat scurrying across the street, he quickly crossed the empty path and climbed into the jeep. The modified desert jeep was fully open air. It had no doors and no roof. What it had were just a windscreen and the steel frame itself. Almost all unnecessary facilities had been removed for the sole purpose of installing a heavy machine gun in the back seat, making the car layout crude and simple. Phew, next up is the main show now. Lin Ke breathed out heavily. Despite having played the game for 6 years, he was, nevertheless, still nervous in this instant. In the past, he could still come back to life after he died, but should he die now, he would be dead for real. He had already paid the price for saving the game console's 800 yuan reparation fee with his life. However, God had granted him a revival token now. If he let it go to waste again, he would really be left with nothing. 2. This particular body of Lin Ke's was frail and skinny, it also leaned toward the shorter end. Thus, he had to adjust the seat slightly so that the tip of his foot could step on the gas pedal. Through the windscreen, he observed the current situation. The battle at the camp entrance was nearing its conclusion. Without ammunition replenishments, the slaves that had obtained weaponry had less and less basis on which they could continue their resistance. At the moment, a team of mercenaries was already quietly approaching them. A short distance away in the desert, several desert jeeps were pursuing the slaves. The scene was no different from a one-sided hunt and massacre. How could slaves that had run out barehanded possibly fight against steel behemoths? Machine gun fire raked the surroundings without pause, and bullets embedded themselves into the slaves. Gunpowder exploded, and the huge explosive force rendered the slaves' internal organs badly mangled. Their intestines slipped out all over. Blood spurted from the slaves that were shot in the arms and legs. They fell onto the ground as they moaned and groaned in pain and agony before they were crushed under the jeep's wheels. Lin Ke set his sights on the parking lot's side entrance. Not only did the parking lot's side entrance in the mercenary camp lead directly to the desert, but it was also a road free of obstacles. Since several jeeps were currently out on pursuit duty, the barricade at the entrance was raised high up in the air and provided no obstruction at all. Boom! Lin Ke had only just inserted the key into the slot when he suddenly heard a thunderous explosion coming from the direction of the underground crypt. He could feel the ground shaking, even while seated in the jeep. 1. Snap, snap. The scene of the scaffolding around the ancient ruins falling apart completely entered Lin Ke's sight. The fissures in the ground rapidly spread outward in all directions and extended greedily to any and every area. Several mercenaries also heard the horrifying sound. All of them ceased their gunfire and turned as one to look in the direction of the explosion. Oh no, the cave-in and quicksand are about to start. Cold sweat covered Lin Ke's forehead, and his countenance changed abruptly. Without any hesitation, he turned the key and started the desert jeep. 1. Vroom! The loud boom of the high-speed engine revving to life rang out. Lin Ke started the car with practiced motions, U-turned, and sped out with his foot on the gas pedal. You've successfully started the desert jeep, modified, and activated your special ability, Basic Driving. Basic Driving Progress, 0.1%. 0.2%. Lin Ke rammed his foot all the way down on the gas pedal. The jeep's ultra-fast acceleration pressed his entire body against the seat. He firmly held the steering wheel with both hands, not daring to let down his guard in the slightest. 2. This effing modified desert jeep really is a piece of SHT. In order to reduce weight to the fullest extent, they actually removed the seatbelt as well. 3. The desert jeep traveled as fast as lightning and charged right out of the mercenary camp, blowing up clouds of sand and dust the whole way. When the mercenaries guarding the side entrance saw a jeep racing away in front of them, they were baffled for a moment. The person in the driver's seat just now seemed to be a slave wearing flax clothing? F***ck, why was he in the parking lot? The mercenaries stared blankly for a moment before they regained their senses. Then, they lifted the walkie-talkies at their chests and shouted into it. A slave has stolen a car and escaped. Attention, all units. The car plate number is 777. Car plate number 777. 1. Through the rearview mirror, Lin Ke saw the mercenaries on guard duty speaking into their walkie-talkies. Then, he directed his line of vision to the desert jeeps pursuing and slaughtering the slaves in the desert. 2 of the jeeps started to drift on the spot, made a U-turn, and charged toward him. At the same time, the booming explosions in the underground crypt were getting louder and louder. The scaffolding had already completely collapsed, the yellowish-brown curtain covering the scaffolding had also fallen along with it. The entire underground crypt sank into the ground. The land around the ruins also began to sink, gradually forming an inclined dip. All the sand and earth beneath their feet converged at the epicenter. Everyone, be it the resisting slaves or the mercenaries in the camp, was extremely terrified upon seeing what was happening. There was nothing more terrifying than quicksand and sandstorms in a desert. Right now, quicksands have formed. The Grim Reapers had come. Run! Hurry, run! The mercenaries howled as they ran toward the parking lot. At a time like this, who gave a damn about suppressing the slaves? The cave-in speed was much faster than their running speed. The people near the quicksand epicenter sprinted fervently, only to find that they simply couldn't run out of the vortex, no matter how hard they tried. In no time, they were devoured by the quicksand. Like a leaf sinking into a vortex, the camp was buried by quicksand in the blink of an eye, disappearing from sight. The quicksand vortex became larger and larger. As though an invisible pair of hands was pulling them, everyone who couldn't flee in time was dragged into the vortex's epicenter and sucked into an unknown place. The mercenaries madly dashed toward the cars and scrambled into them. They started the cars, put them into gear, and stepped down on the gas pedals in one smooth motion. Cars sped off at high speed from the side entrance. It was just that sand dunes were slowly beginning to rise in front of their windscreens. In the cars, everyone's visual angles also gradually began to rise. In fact, they could already see the sky without even needing to lift their heads. The jeep's roaring engines sounded much like ancient behemoths, but it was to no avail. All of them were mercilessly dragged into the epicenter by the quicksand's silent power and devoured. Upon seeing this, the two jeeps that had initially U-turned with intentions to block Lin Ke from the front hastily spun around. At times like this, whoever still followed orders were fools. Compared to their lives, what did employment relationships even count as? However, just as they were U-turning, Lin Ke weaved through the two jeeps coolly and raced off the whole way. Chapter 2, This Man's Luck is 1.3. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. In the rearview mirror, Lin Ke saw that the sinking quicksand would soon sweep away the two cars furthest away from him because they hadn't U-turned immediately. The vortex epicenter was like the gigantic Doughty One monster, whose appetite could never be satiated. Not only did the quicksand not stop, but it was even expanding at an even more dramatic speed than before. 1. The two cars that had U-turned were also racing away at high speed for their lives at this moment, especially the machine gunners standing at the back, who had a wide view of the area. They watched as the entire ancient ruins sank into the sand, and the camp dissolved into nothingness in an instant. The slaves and mercenaries fighting it out earlier were all gone by now. As Wasteland's gang mercenaries, they often carried out missions in the desert. Thus, they naturally knew how fearsome quicksand could be. As they watched the rapidly advancing quicksand about to reach their feet, extreme fear filled the few remaining mercenaries' hearts. 1. God damn it, go a little faster. Kman, go a little faster. It's already at its limit. The driver's foot was already pressed all the way down on the gas pedal. How he wished that he could stomp a hole through the jeep's chassis with his leg. 2. Currently, 3 desert jeeps were traveling at high speed. Lin Ke was in the lead while the other 2 cars driven by the mercenaries were moving beside each other, forming a triangular formation. Lin Ke's eyes swept across the rearview mirror. The quicksand was practically pressed right up against the 2 jeeps' rear wheels. Those 4 people don't have the time to attack me at the moment because they are fleeing for their lives. However, once we successfully escape, they'll definitely fire at the first chance they get. A hint of killing intent flashed across Lin Ke's eyes, and he decided to make the first move. Lin Ke spun the steering wheel, swung abruptly in front of one of the mercenary cars, changed gears, and braked in one smooth motion, causing the jeep's speed to drop abruptly. When the mercenary driving noticed that Lin Ke had reduced his speed, fear and panic came over his countenance at once. Fire! Hurry, kill him! Don't let him block the way! 2. The mercenary in the back seat was still watching the quicksand behind them, but he turned around at once upon hearing what his partner said. He was just about to pick up the machine gun when Lin Ke's car trunk heavily collided with their jeep's hood. The strong collision force knocked the mercenary in the back seat directly off the car, and he sank into the quicksand in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only a struggling arm exposed to the outside. In no time, he was swept into the center of the vortex. 1. The collision knocked the jeep within the quicksand's range, trapping its 2 rear wheels within. The wheels spun madly, but all they could do was spin in the air amid the quicksand, unable to gain any traction. They barely managed to hang in there thanks to the two front wheels of the four-wheel drive system pushing ahead. Lin Ke stepped on the gas pedal and accelerated, zooming all the way to the front. The wheels kicked up sand, which battered against the Jeep's windscreen behind before gushing back into the car. 2. In less than a couple of seconds, the mercenaries disappeared into the quicksand along with the Jeep. You've used a vehicle to kill Wasteland's gang mercenaries and gained 200 EXP x2. The whole series of actions was completed in just a few short seconds. It was only when the Jeep sank into the quicksand that the driver and mercenary in the other car belatedly reacted. Kill him! Hurry, kill him! As Lin Ke had instantly slowed down and reversed the car to finish off the enemies behind him, he had lost his leading position. He was currently only ahead of the Jeep beside him by half a car's length. The mercenary lifted the heavy machine gun and shot in Lin Ke's direction. The heavy machine gun muzzle spat out fiery sparks, the bullets emitting ear-piercing whizzes in the air. Lin Ke gritted his teeth and hunched forward, minimizing his exposed body surface area as much as he could. He grabbed the steering wheel firmly with both hands, slammed down hard on the gas pedal, and accelerated. Clinks and clanks from the Jeep being struck by gunfire rang out once in a while. Stop! Hurry and goddamn stop! The driver had fallen into a panic. The heavy machine gun's recoil was too strong, so the Jeep had actually begun to deviate to the left after firing. On the dashboard, the speedometer's pointer had actually also fallen by 5 points. 2. If they fired a few more times, they could just forget about outrunning the quicksand. Lin Ke was alone in his car, so the load was lighter. In this instant, under all-out acceleration, his Jeep's speed was actually exceeding the enemy cars, which carried 2 people. Bit by bit, he began to pull ahead by 1 car's length. The Jeep charged past the top of the sand dunes at full speed and soared high up into the sky. Lin Ke felt his bottom hanging in the air, and the end of the continuous stretch of desert appeared in his sight. He could vaguely see an abandoned city at the very end. 1. An abandoned city near the underground crypt of death, Lin Ke combed through his memories. Very quickly, he locked onto the information about the abandoned city. The desert was the Wasteland's gang's territory. However, the abandoned city in the Gobi Desert was another Forces the Machinery Holy Cult territory. 1. There was nowhere to hide in the vast and boundless desert. If Lin Ke wanted to rid himself of the other 2 mercenaries, then the only chance he had was to hide inside the city ruins. Bam! The desert Jeep fell onto the desert heavily, the impact heavily dazing Lin Ke in the seat. The Jeep swayed and lurched, moving in a completely different manner from before. Lin Ke's mind had only just cleared up a little when he heard a whir behind him. The mercenaries' Jeep had also charged their way out of the quicksand and successfully escaped. Lin Ke slammed down on the gas pedal and drove toward the city ruins in the north without any hesitation whatsoever. The car in front pulled ahead by more than 200 meters, and they got into a chase in the undulating and churning sand dunes. With his head hanging, Lin Ke moved about in an erratic zigzag motion. The crackling of bullets behind him sounded much like the firecrackers behind a wedding car when the groom went to pick up the bride in her home. The raking gunfire continued for several minutes before coming to an end when the bullets were fully depleted. Phew, it has finally stopped. Lin Ke could hear ringing in his ears. Stray bullets had struck his right rear view mirror, the windscreen also sported bullet holes. A large half of the glass had already turned into a dense spider web. In the rear view mirrors, he could still see the mercenaries behind persistently chasing after him. Thus, he began plotting ways to deal with the 2 of them. He initially thought that the 2 of them would retreat in the face of difficulties after they had depleted their ammunition. Little did he think that the Jeep would clamp so tightly onto him the whole way without any sign of giving up at all. Looks like I can only think of a way to shake them off in the city ruins. Lin Ke cast a glance at the fuel gauge. After the escape and pursuit just now, the fuel gauge's needle had already reached the midpoint. He estimated that he had, more or less, just enough fuel to reach the ruins. The load in the mercenary car had become significantly lighter after the two Wastelands gang mercenaries had depleted their heavy machine gun ammo. Although the distance between Lin Ke and them was still increasing, they at least stayed within an acceptable range. The entire ancient ruins and camp had already been buried under the quicksand. How would their boss view this matter when everyone was dead and the two of them the only ones who managed to escape and make their way back? If they wanted to return, then they at least had to have a little something in their hands to prove that they hadn't fled but had been pursuing and attacking someone instead. 9. Lin Ke's head was the best piece of evidence. As for Lin Ke on the other side, he had also breathed a small sigh of relief by this point. At last, he finally had the energy to study the system. There was no change in the system. It still featured two main categories: stats and missions. Lin Ke opened the stats category. Several pale red lines of statistical data appeared at the lower right corner of his vision. There was also meaning to the system's colors. The system display was pale red during combat, whereas it would be pale blue when out of combat. Name: Lin Ke. Race: Human. Level: LV1. EXP: 400. Class: N/A. Status: Slave 1. Health points: 40/60ths, overworked, 2. Energy points: 20/40ths, feeble. Stats: Power, 3, Agility, 3, Endurance, 6, Intelligence, 4, Energy, 2, Charm, 1, Luck, 1, 10. Latent capacity points, 0. Talent, N/A. Skills, N/A. Equipment: Sharp Dagger, white. Special abilities: Basic Driving, yet to master fully. Appraisal: You're really a lucky one. 4. Black Guy ?Face.jpg 13. Lin Ke was rather downcast and frustrated. Just a mere look at the system's speech pattern, and one would know that it had a sarcastic and mocking personality. What did it mean by he was really a lucky one? He wanted to flag and report it. 3. After looking at his stats, Lin Ke found the panel quite the eyesore at once. In the game, apart from energy, charm, and luck points being random, all the other stats in a normal person's settings should have been 5 points. However, apart from his endurance that was 6 points, none of Lin Ke's other stats even reached 5 points currently. In other words, he couldn't even match up to a normal human. However, Lin Ke could understand the reason behind this. How many luck points could a slave who originally should have been buried in the quicksand possibly have? But this wasn't a huge issue to Lin Ke, either. As long as he could escape, he would definitely be able to gain back this bit of stats by making use of his advantage being able to foresee the game's plot. Lin Ke took another look at his EXP bar. The 400 EXP points he had earned from killing 2 Wasteland gang mercenaries using a vehicle were enough for him to level up to level 2. However, he still had pursuers behind him at the moment. To quote Lin Ke, "I can level up, but it isn't necessary." 5. The pursuit was still ongoing. The 2 remaining mercenaries were just like hyenas whose teeth had tightly clamped onto Lin Ke and refused to let go. As Lin Ke drove, he combed his memory for information about the city ruins. As he got nearer and nearer to the city ruins, his memories also gradually awakened. 2. Currently, the city ruins should still be in a state of abandonment. The machinery holy cult will only station troops in the ruins during this time next year. Lin Ke's eyes shone as he made plans mentally. Looking at the fuel gauge needle on his dashboard, the mercenary driver shouted excitedly, "He definitely doesn't have much fuel left. There's no way he can get away. Hurry, ready your weapons." Specialized staff members would fill all the car's fuel tanks after they were parked at the camp. Since they were running out of fuel now, the car in front definitely won't be left with much either. The mercenary standing at the back began to sort out his weapons. I only have a tactical machine pistol, a handgun, and some ammo magazines now. 2. That's enough. If they couldn't even kill an unarmed slave with these, then they would be too ashamed to go back anyway. 2. Although we can catch up to him, how do we go back when the car runs out of fuel later? Don't worry, I wouldn't have charged out either if I didn't have anything to fall back on, replied the driver as he pulled out a satellite phone from his pocket. He explained, I was reporting the situation on the earthquake and underground crypt at the time when the riot suddenly broke out. After that, I put the phone away in my pocket in passing. The mercenary driver took a look at the speeding jeep in front. Then, with a cold and sinister look in his eyes, he said, when we've killed that kid, we'll call to report our location and wait for help to come. They were getting nearer and nearer to the city ruins. They could already see the outline of the ruins from afar. It was unlike the abandoned high-rise buildings, rust-spotted surroundings, and blend of nature and steel ruins that people usually imagined. The majority of the machinery holy cult's ruins were like the one in front, which didn't have any high-rise buildings inside. All the buildings had been crushed into bits and pieces, just like piles of rubbish that people had forgotten to clean up after the buildings had been demolished and the inhabitants relocated. The whole city gave off a cold, icy sense of desolation, as though locusts had swarmed through the area and left it barren. Lin Ke noticed that many key things were still the same in the familiar, yet also unfamiliar, ruins in front of him. With that, he gained even more confidence in executing his plans. The fuel gauge's needle entered the red section, indicating that he had run out of fuel. Lin Ke cast a glance at the back using the rear-view mirror. The Wastelands gang mercenaries were approximately 400 to 500 meters away from him. It was enough for him to make preparations in advance after arriving at his destination. Sputter, sputter. The exhaust pipe let out a few fart-like sounds, and the jeep ran out of fuel completely. Lin Ke had already driven into the city ruins. With the jeep's last bit of inertial speed, he began to show off driving tricks and started to go around in frenzied circles on the spot. The rubber wheels chafed violently against the ground, blowing up thick clouds of yellowish-brown earth and black smoke that instantly enveloped the whole jeep. A strong earthy smell and the acrid smell of rubber mixed together, choking Lin Ke so much that he got into a coughing fit. Lin Ke took advantage of the cover provided by the thick smoke to jump down the car and walk deeper inside the city. Upon seeing the engulfing waves of earth and smoke around the jeep, the mercenaries pursuing him immediately shouted, "He has gotten off the car and hidden himself in the city." The mercenary standing at the back took a look at the tactical machine pistol and handgun hanging around his neck. The two firearms had a firing range of 50 meters, firing them as a warning now would be nothing more than just a waste of ammo. It seemed like the heavy machine gun still had a few rounds of ammo left, so he could fire that into the smoke and try his luck first. 1. The mercenary lifted the gun barrel forcefully with his arms. The muzzle was already close to becoming directed at the sky. Clack, clack, clack. The last few rounds of ammo went flying out, leaving behind a line of light in midair as they shot into the dust and smoke. Lin Ke passed through the fog of smoke, incredibly familiar with the city ruins layout. He headed toward his destination without even a sideward glance. At this point, he heard the demonstration of power gunshots from the heavy machine gun behind him. Lin Ke couldn't help but sneer. Shooting through 400 to 500 meters of smoke? Why don't you just use the heavy machine gun like a thermal sniper rifle, then? He had only just spoken when. Whiz! The sound of a bullet flying by at high speed passed by Lin Ke's ear. At the same time, he felt a piercing wave of pain at his right deltoid area. 3. You've been shot, grazed, by the BL-150 heavy machine gun and lost 10 health points. You've entered the irregular state bleeding. Bleeding, 1 health point is deducted every 10 minutes. Lasts 2 hours. 1. Lin Ke's countenance changed dramatically. Isn't this too goddamn ridiculous? He can actually hit me even when doing something like that. 4. Lin Ke glanced at the wound, which spanned 1.5 centimeters, at his right deltoid. The bullet had burned his skin, and part of his flesh had split open. With a bit of clean fabric, he could dress the wound. However, the fog of smoke behind him was already showing signs of dispersing. The sounds of the jeep were also becoming increasingly clear, giving him no time to dress his wound at all. With his plan messed up right at the first step, Lin Ke could only jog the whole way and make the most of the time he had to reach the destination in his plans. 1. With 40 HP, he originally had the chance to show off for a while. In the end, he was grazed by a bullet and left with only 30 HP, which messed up Lin Ke's plans. 2. Lin Ke really couldn't tell whether he was lucky or unfortunate. 1. They had shot randomly through the smoke from a distance of 300 to 400 meters, and with heavy machine gun bullets that fell extremely quickly no less. In order to hit him, wouldn't they have to lift the muzzle all the way into the sky? Were they trying to freaking shoot a human or a plane? 1. Something strange must really be happening for even something like that to graze him. However, when looking at it from another perspective, had the bullet deviated to the side by even a centimeter, his entire arm wouldn't even qualify to become roasted beef marrow anymore. 1. The streets in the abandoned city had fallen into decline. Brown root tubers grew from gaps in the collapsed houses, creeping and climbing up between bricks and tiles. Buildings had collapsed into piles of bricks, and only the brick walls at the bottommost layer were still standing stubbornly. The paint on the surface was mottled and peeling off, with only small, scattered pieces still sticking to the bricks to show the color they had originally been. Be it the residential areas, commercial buildings, or supermarkets, all of them had either collapsed into piles of bricks or crushed into irregular concrete chunks. If one paid any attention, they would discover that there was no sign of metal in this city at all. Lin Ke had already become accustomed to this. The machinery holy cult was like a swarm of locusts, all the places they passed by looked like this. Lin Ke quickly reached his destination, a gigantic green wall constructed from concrete. 5s. Chapter 3, Bangles Shocking Change 3. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Although the green wall in front of him was old, it was probably the most intact structure in the city ruins. When Lin Ke saw this 6 to 7 meters tall green wall, memories of the past gradually emerged. His memories had returned, all of them. This was not just a wall, but a maze made from pure concrete that existed during the time when the city thrived and prospered. After the wasteland era, the machinery holy cult occupied this place and looted all the metal in the city. Since this maze was constructed of concrete, it was spared and survived till today. 3. When the game officially opened for beta testing, the machinery holy cult had stationed its troops here after they discovered the underground crypt of death. The machinery holy cult's soldiers wore exoskeleton armor. They would drop blueprints, parts, and even armor chips required by the mechanical system after they were killed. Back then, Lin Ke had earned his first pot of gold here, relying on the maze's complex terrain. Lin Ke waited for a few seconds in front of the green-walled maze and saw the jeep coming out of the green cloud of smoke and dust. The Wasteland's gang mercenaries immediately noticed Lin Ke, who was standing on the street covering his arm. Shot. The machine gunner looked as though he had won the lottery after seeing the slave clutching his arm. To hit him despite the poor visibility, you must be very lucky. His companion, who was the driver, couldn't help but complain. 2. The machine gunner was so conceited that his nose was almost pointing up to the sky. Maybe it's all thanks to me that we can escape this time. Remember to treat me when we are back. Stop talking rubbish. That guy has run away. Crap, where can a slave go? The jeep completely ran out of fuel and continued to slide forward due to inertia. One had a pistol in hand while the other had a tactical machine pistol, as they leaped off the jeep, running in the direction where Lin Ke disappeared to. When the two arrived at the green wall entrance, they popped their heads in and took a glance inside. This looks like a maze. That little fellow has disappeared into it. The two looked at each other, deciding on their strategy almost instantly. You will enter from here and pursue him while I head over to block the exit. Let's sandwich him. 2. Okay. Let's make this a quick fight. We must not attract the machinery holy cult. I don't want to end up as a human battery. 2. They were armed with guns and did not think much of an unarmed and wounded slave. Instead, they were very fearful of the machinery holy cult. 3. Lin Ke entered the concrete maze and immediately experienced the feeling of killing monsters back then. This was where he discovered the fun of killing monsters. Relying on the concrete maze's complex terrain and narrowness, he led more than a dozen machinery holy cult soldiers in circles, chipping away at them bit by bit. This was also the place that laid the foundation for Lin Ke's golden farmer career. Destiny was a game created to solve the tension between the people's growing material and cultural needs and falling productivity. Under the coalition government's leadership, many companies had joined forces to create this game, using the latest generation optical computing technology and virtual game cabins. Apart from the basic parameter settings, everything else in the game was generated by optical computers without human intervention. 3. After its release, Destiny instantly became popular all over the world. At its peak, there were 4 billion people online at the same time. It had become a relaxation and entertainment outlet for people after they were done with work. Enterprises in the real world would naturally not miss such an opportunity to create publicity. They set up guild teams to project their influence in the game. Moreover, our protagonist Lin Ke had been in the game since the game's beta test. His luck was normal, and he did not have any extraordinary encounters. However, it was this concrete labyrinth that opened a new door for him, killing monsters and earning gold. 4. Lin Ke gradually became a gold farmer, earning a fair amount of income every month by selling in-game currency. Skill could replace luck. His long-term experience in earning gold had resulted in him having effective and efficient monster-killing skills. In addition, he was willing to work hard. He stood out among the many gold farmers and had a bit of fame. Hence, he had a lot of stable customers on hand, including some wealthy tycoons from the guilds. 2. For Lin Ke, this place was where the dream had begun. Lin Ke walked into the maze calmly. He had the entire layout of the maze in his head. Lin Ke planned to use his knowledge of the maze to lay a trap for the two mercenaries. After they were separated, he would make a sneak attack with his dagger and kill them. Lin Ke did not realize that the blood from the gunshot wound on his right arm was flowing along his thin arm. What was surprising was that the blood did not flow down to his fingertips but was cut off by the gold bangle on his forearm. This gold bangle was sucking his fresh blood greedily at this moment. 4. The bangle was made entirely of gold and was shaped like a death worm. Its body resembled a worm with blurry head features and a mouth filled with rows of sharp teeth. A lifelike scarab was carved near the tail of the worm. Lin Ke did not notice it at first. When he reached the ambush site and raised his dagger, he saw a horrifying scene on his arm. The golden death worm on his bangle was actually moving. The death worm squirmed slowly, and the bangle began to shrink, completely gluing onto Lin Ke's skin without revealing any gaps. The death worm absorbed the blood, and the gold on the surface began to peel off, revealing its red body that was filled with blood. Lin Ke watched as the bracelet became tighter. He reached out to take it off, only to realize that the bangle had been attached to his arm as though it was part of his body. What is this wretched thing? 6. When Lin Ke took the bangle during his escape, he hoped to exchange it for some money as startup capital. He didn't expect that his earlier actions would turn out to be a disaster. At this moment, a series of notifications appeared in front of Lin Ke. You received the Zerg's Nest 1 data insect-like race in the game StarCraft. Incomplete, 16. Zerg's Nest, incomplete, successfully bound. The synthesize interface is activating. Please wait. It turned out to be the Zerg's Nest. Lin Ke's heart trembled, as though huge waves were crashing into it. After transmigrating into the game, he was not that surprised after returning to a period 6 years back. However, he was ecstatic, and his face was full of all sorts of colorful expressions after obtaining the Zerg's nest. Why did version 6.0 Heart of the Swarm's Power Artifact 2. The second installment in the StarCraft 2 series end up in my hands? 3. There was only Lin Ke standing in the dark corner. No one could answer his doubts. Lin Ke recovered from his shock. He first listened for the enemy's position while holding his breath. He then returned his attention to the system interface after he was sure that his surroundings were safe. Synthesis was added behind stats and missions. Entering the synthesis interface, the first thing that caught his eyes was a set of complicated instructions comparable to a drug prescription. 1. After glancing through it, Lin Ke summarized the following 3 points. To put it simply, this could be used for biosynthesis and transformation of organisms. In version 6.0, Heart of the Swarm, before Lin Ke's transmigration, Paul the Great Emperor, who had the complete Zerg's nest, dominated the other players. He led an army of transformed organisms and subdued the big companies and guilds to the point that they were subservient to him. 2. Only Lin Ke knew about the Titan warships, dragon vessels, bioalloy leviathans, legendary mobile suits, super fortresses, and the Death Star gravitation command platform that were lost by the United Army of the Hundreds Guild during their battle with Paul the Great Emperor. 1. They were worth hundreds of billions. 1. After the battle, Paul the Great Emperor retreated completely. It was a one-sided massacre. The Zerg's nest that Lin Ke activated was only one part of the complete Zerg's nest. Its functions were also greatly reduced compared to the completed version. But even this castrated version was enough for Lin Ke to rise to prominence. Lin Ke's synthesis interface currently had only one formula. Organism plus material equals organism. You only needed to provide the ingredients required by the formula to synthesize new organisms. The requested organism could not be higher than Lin Ke's level. However, there were no restrictions on materials. I am only level 1 at the moment. Anyway, where can I find any organisms within the city ruins? It was a pleasant surprise to obtain the Zerg nest. However, there were no other organisms at the moment. Lin Ke's top priority was also to deal with the 2 Wastelands gang mercenaries. Just after Lin Ke exited the interface, he realized that the bangle on his wrist had disappeared. A few pieces of gold were lying on the ground. On his arm was a tattoo of the deathworm and the scarab. This had to be the artifact's form after it was bound. You received 400 grams of gold. 1. Right after Lin Ke picked up all the gold, he heard the shouts of the 2 mercenaries. I am in position. Me too. The 2 voices went back and forth, without any attempt of concealment. They are thinking of sandwiching me. Lin Ke immediately saw through the enemy's plan. He knew their locations from their voices. If the 2 of them walked over from front and back, not only would he not be able to sneak attack them, but he would also be sandwiched and attacked by them. Moreover, his roaming range would be reduced by half. He would also be open to attacks on his stomach and back, unable to defend himself properly. 2. I cannot stay in this position any longer. Lin Ke stood up. His current position was at the center of the maze. His only way to survive now was to choose a side and break through it. Lin Ke got up and walked towards the front entrance. He heard some grass rustling in the corner just after he took 2 steps. He steadied his eyes and saw that it was actually a rat. Lin Ke's eyes brightened. Ah! Isn't this an organism? The rat was only level 1, which fit the requirements perfectly. Putting his dagger back in the crotch area of his trousers, Lin Ke stepped forward to grab the rat and entered the synthesis interface again. Rat, adult, plus gold, 100 grams, equals 90% success rate, 8. Synthesis consumes 10 health points. Synthesize? Yes/no. As for consuming 10 HP, Lin Ke took a glance at his 30 HP. This synthesis wouldn't be fatal to him. With a success rate of 90%, what was there to consider? Synthesize. Lin Ke noticed that the 100 grams of gold in his left hand was gradually absorbed and disappeared from his palm. The rat in his right hand was wrapped in blood-red filaments that emerged from his palm, eventually forming a fist-sized blood cocoon. Blood cocoon incubation countdown, 30 seconds. According to the synthesis instructions, the new organism's incubation time was proportional to the level of creatures and materials used. Rats were the most common creatures, while gold was a rare metal of green quality. Fortunately, Lin Ke didn't put in too much gold. Hence, the incubation time was extremely short. Holding the blood cocoon, Lin Ke hid in an inconspicuous corner of the maze. The anxious and highly anticipated half-minute was finally over. Along with a series of graceful system notifications, a rat emerged from the cocoon, poking out its little furry head to look at Lin Ke. Monster synthesis is complete. Obtained treasure hunter rat, green. 4. Monster stats. Name, treasure hunter rat, young. Quality, green. Race, rodent. Stats, metal affinity. Level, 1. Initial skill, search by smell LV1. The treasure hunter rat has a keen sense of smell and can distinguish the various scents in the air. It is particularly sensitive to metallic items. Its search range is 500 meters. Its range is doubled for metallic objects. Evaluation, ordinary rat with precious metals fused with its blood. It is extremely sensitive to the smell of metals. In short, you have found yourself a treasure-collecting basin. Lin Ke's eyes lit up. Searching for treasures was of secondary importance. What was formidable was its metal-sensing ability. Lin Ke gently patted treasure hunter rat, which was sniffing and licking his palm. He then said in a low voice, "Take me to the nearest metal source now." 5. It was time to verify the ability of treasure hunter rat. 11s. Chapter 4, The Strength of Treasure Hunter Rat. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Treasure hunter rat leaped off Lin Ke's palm. Although it was still young, it was of green quality after all. Its speed and abilities were better than ordinary adult rats. Although the description of treasure hunter rat portrayed it as very powerful, Lin Ke still had his dagger in hand. He did not intend to place all his hopes on his pet. 1. If he was using a professional strategy, a set of effective solutions tested and verified by countless players, Lin Ke would naturally feel bold and confident. But Lin Ke's current bangle, which had never been obtained by a player before, represented a new path for him to explore. As Lin Ke was a prudent person, he would not fully place his life on it. 1. Lin Ke followed treasure hunter rat as it moved along the maze walls. After making a few turns, Lin Ke's eyes brightened. Treasure hunter rat really is something. This little guy did not lead me on a detour. The route it is taking me on is the way to the maze's exit. Squeak, squeak. Treasure hunter rat walked for a while before stopping suddenly. It looked up at Lin Ke, and then at the wall. Lin Ke's eyes widened, and he was shocked. He actually understood what treasure hunter rat was trying to say. Not long after, Lin Ke heard the sound of army boots. Lin Ke crouched at the corner of the wall with his sharp dagger. He was not a tall person. Now that he was in a crouching position, he was even more inconspicuous. Because of the Zerg's nest, Lin Ke and treasure hunter rat had established a kind of spiritual connection. Lin Ke could give orders to it without saying a word. Treasure hunter rat squatted at Lin Ke's feet, imitating his actions. Its posture and movements made it look like a tiny Lin Ke. 4. Lin Ke had a helpless expression. Children love to imitate the actions of adults. Treasure hunter rat imitated him for a short while before feeling a little sore. Perhaps it was because its bones were not fully developed as it was born only a while ago. The weight was too much for its spine and muscles to bear. Treasure hunter rat pressed its two small paws on both sides of its waist and rhythmically moved back and forth, exercising those rigid muscles. 3. Lin Ke raised his hands and swore that this was definitely not taught by him. 3. The sound of rubber-soled army boots walking on the gravel became clearer, and Lin Ke was able to determine the enemy's position. 1. Lin Ke reached out and patted Treasure Hunter Rat, who was rubbing the air with its waist. Treasure Hunter Rat staggered and rubbed the back of its head with its little paws. It then got down into a fighting stance. Carry out the plan. As soon as Lin Ke finished transmitting this thought, Treasure Hunter Rat received the order. The short whiskers at the corner of its mouth and its extraordinary sense of smell accurately outlined the image of the mercenary. The sounds and vibrations of the mercenary's footsteps were received by Treasure Hunter Rat, allowing it to determine the mercenary's specific location. Treasure Hunter Rat remained motionless as if it had been frozen after a night in the wild. However, it stretched out its paws to scratch the wall and threw a pebble on the ground against it the next second, making all sorts of noises. The mercenary was holding a pistol. Although he said he didn't care, he was subconsciously cautious when making a turn inside the maze. Traversing the maze was quite annoying. If he had a grappling hook on him, he would jump up onto the wall, hence removing the need to walk through the maze. At this moment, the mercenary heard a noise coming from the corner just ahead and twitched his mouth slightly. Instead of running away, you want to raise the stakes by ambushing me in the corner? You make me laugh. Since you like to play, I shall entertain you a little before you die. The mercenary even imagined that he would suddenly turn around and shoot the slave in the head in the next few seconds. The slave would have a stunned expression with his eyes wide open, not understanding how he was exposed. The time it takes to have a sip of cappuccino is sufficient to get rid of this injured useless slave. The mercenary raised his pistol, not bothering to conceal his footsteps. The noises behind the wall in the corner disappeared within a blink of an eye. The mercenary was sure that this little fellow was squatting behind the wall. It was impossible to escape without making any noises. The mercenary's muzzle moved a few inches down. He remembered that the slave was not tall. When he turned the corner of the wall, his muzzle would be pointed toward, at just the right height, the slave's forehead, giving him a surprise. 2. Treasure Hunter Rat felt that the mercenary was close by and began to carry out its orders. It prostrated on the ground and raised its back slightly, as though it was giving itself a boost before sprinting. You can do it. When the mercenary lifted his foot and was about to walk over, Treasure Hunter Rat rushed out from the corner. The mercenary was focusing his attention on the slave hiding in the corner. The rat's sudden dash frightened him and caught him off guard, causing him to tremble. 1. Treasure Hunter Rat climbed up the mercenary's army boots and onto his camouflage pants. It then went around behind his butt. The mercenary subconsciously turned and stretched out his hand to chase off the rat. His hand unknowingly raised the gun by a few inches. Now is the time. Lin Ke rushed out of the corner and immediately saw the black pistol. Lin Ke's sharp knife gave off a flash of cold light as it plunged directly into the mercenary's dark green t-shirt, piercing his heart. You struck the enemy's heart, causing 5 times the damage. At the same time, Lin Ke saw the words 120 critical strike damage popping out from the mercenary. Ah! The mercenary was careless. He left himself exposed and was critically struck by Lin Ke. By the time the mercenary reacted and wanted to fire his pistol, Lin Ke had already pulled out the dagger and returned to his hiding corner. From start to finish, the mercenary did not get to see Lin Ke's face. He only saw the corner of Lin Ke's clothes when Lin Ke turned and made his graceful escape. After the dagger was pulled from his chest, his punctured heart immediately released the pressure outwards. With a hissing sound, the mercenary's t-shirt turned red as blood spluttered out of his wound. The mercenary in the second half of the maze heard the screams of his partner and was startled. He hurriedly shouted, "What's wrong with you, brother? Say something." Treasure Hunter Rat appeared on the mercenary's wrist in a flash and began to gnaw at his hand that was holding the gun. The mercenary fell to the ground. He used one of his hands to cover his bleeding heart while trying to use the other to raise his pistol to protect himself. But treasure hunter Rat remained stubbornly attached to his hand. It allowed the mercenary to shake it around as it relentlessly held on and put all its effort into gnawing his hand. 2. -1. -2. -2. Light blue numbers constantly popped up from the mercenary. Treasure hunter Rat had fused with metal, strengthening its teeth. Its gnawing power was higher than that of ordinary rats. In the blink of an eye, the mercenary's hand was already drenched in blood. "I am here. Quick, save me." The mercenary endured the pain and tried his best to make one last cry for help. 3. Right after he finished talking, several of his fingers were bitten off. He could no longer hold the pistol. Clatter. The pistol dropped onto the ground. Lin Kei's eyes brightened. He had been waiting for this opportunity. Coming out of the corner again, the sharp dagger's cold light in his hand was gone. Instead, it was stained with red blood. "Don't come over!" The mercenary panicked and stepped back. With every movement, a large amount of blood gushed out from his fingers. 6. With treasure hunter Rat taking care of him, Lin Kei ignored the mercenary and directly went to pick up the pistol on the ground. "You obtained a Glock 17 pistol." Lin Kei glanced at the system panel. The magazine was full, the gun hadn't fired off a shot before. It was named Glock 17 since the magazine contained 17 rounds. 5. With the pistol in one hand and the dagger in the other, Lin Kei walked to the mercenary with no expression as blood dripped from his right arm. In the mercenary's eyes, this slave had become a grim reaper that was going to take his life. Sputter. The dagger fell. It directly pierced through the mercenary's throat, ending his life. "You've killed a Wastelands gang mercenary and gained 200 EXP. Treasure hunter Rat stopped gnawing and leaped around the mercenary's trouser pockets, reminding Lin Kei that there was still something valuable on the mercenary's body. As a veteran player with 6 years of experience, Lin Kei would not forget to search the corpse. With both hands proficiently moving across the body, Lin Kei obtained quite a number of good items. 2. You've obtained multifunction ammunition belt X1, magazine X2. Treasure hunter Rat stood on the mercenary's corpse, upright and alert. Lin Kei tied the ammunition belt around his waist and pulled down his flax shirt. From the outside, one could not tell that he had a pistol on him. "There's no need to use my crotch to hide the dagger anymore." The multifunction ammunition belt had a place to hold the dagger. Both Lin Kei and his little brother heaved a sigh of relief. 1. With 2 full magazines and 17 rounds of 9mm bullets in the Glock 17 pistol, Lin Kei now had 51 bullets in total. 1. Lin Kei glanced at treasure hunter Rat. He didn't expect this little fellow to be proficient in both attacking and searching. Although it only dealt 1 or 2 points of damage every bite, it had a high attack rate. Earlier, when Lin Kei fled and returned to his hiding spot, treasure hunter Rat had already caused a dozen points of damage. Small rats were especially difficult to shake off. There is one remaining. Lead the way. Now armed with a pistol, Lin Kei was pretty calm. With this pistol, and being in a maze where he had the advantage, his actions had turned from defensive to offensive. Treasure hunter Rat jumped down from the corpse. It appeared unaffected by the strong stench of blood as it ran ahead of Lin Kei to lead the way. On the other side, the other mercenary madly dashed through the maze when he heard the screams of his teammate. However, he could not hear anything in the huge maze after a short while, just terrifying silence. The mercenary soon realized that his teammate should have been killed. However, the eerie atmosphere caused him to lose the courage to move forward. They were obviously dealing with a wounded slave. Why did his teammate make such a terrible cry? The mysterious unknown was the most terrifying thing. The mercenary did not move forward any longer. Instead, he turned and retreated. However, the maze was too complicated. Given his panicked state, there was no way he could find a way out. He ended up getting stuck in an endless loop. The mercenary gave up. He found a blind spot, took out his satellite phone while trembling, and dialed the number of the Wastelands Gang's headquarters. Beep, beep, beep. The mercenary was holding a Bezos T1 tactical machine pistol. The muzzle was facing the corner of the wall in front of him. 1. Every sound made by the satellite phone connection felt infinitely long. This is the Wastelands Gang's headquarters. What's the matter at Camp 52? The camp was destroyed by quicksand, and the ruins have sunk. Everyone died. The mercenary grabbed onto his last lifeline. Before something strange happened to him, he reported everything he knew and asked for help. The camp was destroyed, and the ruins have sunk? Slow down, the operator was shocked by the huge amount of information that was contained in those few words. He hurriedly began to record the details. There is no time for idle talk. My teammate and I chased the fugitive slave and came to the abandoned city north of the Machinery Holy Cult's territories. A stray bullet hit the slave, and we pursued him to a maze-like place. We were going to trap him inside the maze, but, a short while later, my teammate screamed, and I lost contact with him. I don't know if there is something else in the maze, but I'm sure my teammate is dead. I will send the location coordinates now. Hurry, send someone to rescue me. Towards the end, the mercenary no longer knew what he was rambling about. His sentences were breaking up and did not make any sense. I've received the coordinates. I have also uploaded the coordinate information and your response. I need access to your video camera. Connect us through. We need real-time images of the site. Soon, there was a request for access to the satellite phone. The mercenary hurriedly turned on the camera and placed the satellite phone in his chest pocket, aligning it with his line of sight. When Lin Ke heard the mercenary requesting for help, he no longer needed Treasure Hunter Rat to lead the way. Using the mercenary's voice to determine his position, Lin Ke already knew where the mercenary was. Lin Ke did not expect that this mercenary even had a satellite phone. This was indeed a surprise. Satellite phones had two main functions. One was to determine your location. The other was to make calls. Lin Ke only had Zon 1 language level 1 certificate and was unable to communicate with the Wastelands Gang 2. However, real-time positioning was essential if one wanted to leave the city ruins for somewhere safe. In the boundless Gobi Desert, it was simply too easy to kill someone. As long as one didn't provide others with coordinates or information about their position, they would definitely become a skeleton in a few days. Lin Ke soon came close to where the mercenary was, separated by a wall. The mercenary was engrossed in reporting the situation to the Wasteland Gang's headquarters. In addition, Lin Ke did not wear shoes and moved around very quietly. Hence, the mercenary did not notice that the Grim Reaper was approaching quietly. Treasure Hunter Rat, time for you to shine. Treasure Hunter Rat sensed its master's thoughts and shook its limbs a little beside the wall. Whiz! Treasure Hunter Rat quickly ran through the opening. It was closely followed by a burst of flames from a tactical machine pistol. The corners of Lin Ke's mouth curled. Sure enough, my guess is correct. This guy is hiding in a blind spot. His muzzle is pointed toward the outside, he subconsciously reacted as soon as there was trouble. The stress response just now wasted at least a dozen bullets. The Wasteland Gang had only 3 types of weapons for ordinary mercenaries. One was the Glock 17 pistol, which had a magazine capacity of 17 rounds. The second was the Bezos T1 tactical machine pistol, with a magazine capacity of 30 rounds. The third was the tactical dagger, the one in Lin Ke's multifunction ammunition belt. For convenience, the Glock 17 pistol and the tactical machine pistol used the same 9mm bullets. Finally, coupled with the BL-150 heavy machine gun on the modified desert jeep, they could basically cope with all kinds of conventional battles. The mercenary's face was pale, and he frowned with indescribable regret because he actually wasted more than a dozen bullets on a rat. Since he was in a rush, he did not place additional supplies in the jeep. His tactical machine pistol originally only had 30 bullets. He only had slightly over a dozen bullets now. Don't worry now. We have already received approval from the higher UPS. Our helicopter is already on the way. It will arrive at the coordinates in an hour and a half. You must do your best to survive. Okay, I'll do my best. The mercenary gulped. The news of incoming rescue dispelled a little bit of his fear. Lin Ke, who was hiding behind the wall, frowned slightly. If this is the case, I only have 1.5 hours to escape. Time is running out. I need a quick battle. 3. 5s. Chapter 5, What It Means to Win Even When One Is Doing Nothing. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. All Lin Ke knew was that the other party was using a Bezos T1 tactical machine pistol. Lin Ke didn't know how much spare ammo he had, so he didn't dare to act rashly. 1. Treasure Hunter Rat, go another round. Upon hearing the order, Treasure Hunter Rat, hiding opposite him in a corner of the wall, moved stealthily along the wall and crept up to the mercenary. The mercenary almost pulled the tactical machine pistol's trigger when he saw the rat again, but still stopped himself in the end. He had a complex expression on his face. On the one hand, this rat had caused him to waste more than 10 bullets, and he wished that he could exterminate it. On the other hand, the rat appearing within his sight amid such a strange atmosphere eased his unsettlement a little and gave him the illusion that he wasn't all alone. Upon seeing that the other party hadn't fired, Treasure Hunter Rat continued to move ahead boldly while staying close to the wall. The rat had successfully distracted the mercenary a little. Lin Ke was very patient as he hid in the shadows. It wasn't time to launch an ambush yet. Once Treasure Hunter Rat entered the sprinting range, they would coordinate their actions and take the enemy's life. Treasure Hunter Rat continued to approach the mercenary. Although Lin Ke was hiding behind the wall, the unique blood link between them allowed him to clearly sense Treasure Hunter Rat's location. As it turned out, the purpose behind using 10 HP to create the blood cocoon was to nurture his pet and provide nutrients for its birth. This special bond allowed Lin Ke and his pet to build a solid and impregnable relationship, where blood was thicker than water between the two of them. Incubating a cocoon and hatching it. He was seriously playing both father and mother roles. Squeak, squeak. Treasure Hunter Rat let out a few squeaks. Then, it suddenly stood straight and stared at the mercenary in a daze. The mercenary's eyes lit up. His right hand, which was holding a gun, rested on his knee and continued to face outside the wall. He stretched out his left thumb and index finger and rubbed them against each other while making tsking sounds with his tongue to lure Treasure Hunter Rat over. Since he's calling you over, go ahead and put on a show. Hurry. Go right in front of him and launch a sudden attack. Lin Ke vocalized his plan telepathically. While he sensed Treasure Hunter Rat's location, he also got ready to take action. Treasure Hunter Rat tilted its head and sized up the mercenary, putting on a show of being curious. Right after that, it lowered its body and slowly got nearer to the mercenary. A look of joy slowly came over the mercenary's facial features. After spending such a long time in the desert, he knew that all these animals were sentient. Since a rat was moving about here and there now, it implied that his current location was safe for the time being. Thinking of getting the rat to climb onto his palm, the mercenary stretched out his palm. However, Treasure Hunter Rat suddenly sped up. Using the mercenary's palm as a jumping board, it jumped onto his head. The rat's sudden movements surprised the mercenary, and he subconsciously reached out to smack the rat off himself. Lin Ke took the opportunity during this moment to poke his head out from the corner. Holding the Glock 17 with both hands, he took aim and fired decisively. Bang, bang, bang. Some of the bullets struck the wall, and some landed on the mercenary. Every time Lin Ke pulled the trigger, the recoil from the pistol would knock his arms back a little. You've successfully hit the enemy with the Glock 17 pistol and activated your special ability, Basic Marksmanship. Basic Marksmanship progress, 1%. 2%. 3%. Above the mercenary's head, two pale blue numerical figures surfaced one after the other. -20. -23. 2 bullets struck his arm and shoulder, but neither was lethal. Lin Ke fired off 6 shots in total. Only 2 had struck the mercenary while the remaining 4 bullets had flown by vaguely and abstractly. However, his arms were already slightly numb from the pistol recoil. His current body's quality was honestly too poor. It also didn't possess any shooting experience or expertise at all. It was totally a situation of a max-level soul possessing a useless account, a ruler's consciousness but a newbie's operation skills. 1. Clack, clack, clack. Counterattacks from the tactical machine pistol came right in the wake of Lin Ke's gunshots. After Lin Ke ducked and returned to hiding behind the wall, the bullets struck the wall and caused its distinct edges and corners to become irregular and uneven as if something had gnawed on it. The mercenary got to his feet using the wall as support. He held up the tactical machine pistol in one hand while his other hand moved about quickly as he tried to smack the rat darting about on his body. Treasure hunter rat ducked into the mercenary's clothes. As it fled and scurried about, it would bite the mercenary out of the blue once in a while. The 1-1-1 damage indicators above the mercenary didn't pause at all. Damn! That guy's holding a Glock. When he saw Lin Ke, the mercenary instantly realized that his companion's death had nothing to do with the mystical and unknown at all. Rather, it was the slave in front of him that killed his companion using some kind of unknown method. The slave had even gotten his hands on a pistol and ammo magazines now. The situation instantly turned critically dangerous. The mercenary was terribly anxious since he had to guard against the slave behind the wall and also take care of the rat scurrying all over his body at the same time. Not only was the rat scurrying around everywhere on his body at lightning-quick speed, but he had even been shot in the shoulder. As a result, his actions had become significantly slower. Upon seeing this, the mercenary grabbed his t-shirt at the chest, grit his teeth, and ripped the t-shirt off. Upon noticing the mercenary's actions, treasure hunter rat shrank back and squeezed itself into the mercenary's trousers. Both digging holes and diving into them were a rat's innate abilities. A wave of disgust came over the mercenary at once when he felt a ball of fur in his crotch. Cold sweat constantly trickled down his back. 2. At the same time as this, small lines of notifications also appeared in Lin Ke's system interface. Your pet has hit the enemy's weakness and dealt a 12-point critical hit. Your pet has hit the enemy's weakness and dealt a 15-point critical hit. What accompanied the critical hit notifications were the mercenary's heart-wrenching screams. 4. Lin Ke subconsciously squeezed his legs together tightly. These attacks were real tricky, there was no way to defend against them at all. It wasn't like he could fire at his own crotch, right? 4. Lin Ke poked his head out from the corner of the wall. At a time like this, how could the mercenary possibly have the time to guard against him? His tactical machine pistol had already been tossed aside, his hands were cupped over his crotch in a death grip, and he was bent over into a prawn-like pose. All of his defenses were completely gone. Bang, 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 bang. Lin Ke let loose a barrage of bullets, 5 consecutive shots in total. This time, 3 of them hit his target, killing the mercenary through and through. 1. You've killed a Wastelands gang mercenary and gained 200 EXP. Lin Ke flipped the thoroughly dead mercenary over. Treasure hunter rat's tiny little head poked out from the mercenary's trouser waistband. It even had some blood on its head. Lin Ke grimaced. For some reason, he felt an illusory pain at his crotch, too. Perhaps this was what one called empathy. Go to the side and clean yourself up. 1. Treasure hunter rat crawled out obediently, ran over to the corner of the wall, and rolled about in the earth. Then, it used its little paws to groom its head and comb its fur, cleaning itself. A slave like you actually dared to go against your superiors and kill the Wastelands gang's mercenaries. You're dead for sure. 2. Lin Ke was still squatting and searching the corpse when severe censuring came from the satellite phone on the floor. As it turned out, Lin Ke's appearance had already been captured by the satellite phone's camera when he had first appeared from the corner of the wall. However, the mercenary had ripped his t-shirt off to deal with the rat scurrying around on his body. As a result, the satellite phone had dropped onto the floor along with the t-shirt. However, the people at Wastelands gang's headquarters had still heard the mercenary's heart-wrenching screams, as well as the gunshots from the Glock. They naturally guessed what had happened after that. Lin Ke let out a cold snort, the mockery in his attitude fully exhibited. He pulled the t-shirt aside and picked up the satellite phone on the floor. Then, he placed it beside his ear and, as if making an oath, said in a resolute tone with his diaphragm, "Machinery is eternal, the chief lives forever. The desert's secret belongs only to the machinery holy cult." 5. Then, he turned off the satellite phone's communication function after speaking. The motto that Lin Ke had shouted belonged exclusively to the machinery holy cult's fervent followers. This move of redirecting trouble elsewhere directly pointed the finger at another force in the desert, the machinery holy cult. In any case, neither of these two forces was anything decent anyway. Thus, he could just set them loose on each other and let them fight it out. The main thing was that the city ruins were the machinery holy cult's territory. It was highly likely that his words could force the Wastelands gang to discontinue their previous relief effort plans. You've obtained Satellite Phone X1, Bezos T1 Tactical Machine Pistol X1. It's kind of a shame that this person doesn't have machine gun ammo clips on him. 1. Lin Ke searched the mercenary's body from head to toe but only found a phone and a tactical machine pistol. He didn't find any spare ammo clips. Fortunately, both the Glock 17 and the tactical machine pistol used the same 9mm bullets, so he could split some of the bullets in the pistol's ammo clips with the tactical machine pistol, guaranteeing him short to mid-range firepower. Of course, all of this came later. After taking all of his loot, Lin Ke's attention fell onto the dead mercenary again. He sized the corpse up for a brief moment. Then, he actually stuck out his tongue and licked his dry, chapped lips. Just as Lin Ke was about to brandish his dagger to modify the army boots into a size suitable for himself, Treasure Hunter Rat jumped in front of Lin Ke and called out to him anxiously. "Squeak, squeak. Did you say that someone else is here?" Cold sweat trickled down Lin Ke's forehead. He immediately stored the dagger away and took out the pistol. "Myself included, only 3 people escaped from the quicksand. Why are there other people now?" Lin Ke would never believe that anyone could climb out of quicksand, even if someone told him that. In that case, there was only one possibility left: the machinery holy cult. Lin Ke hurriedly did an inventory count of his ammunition. He had 6 bullets left in the Glock, 12 bullets left in the tactical machine pistol, and 2 full ammo clips, totaling 52 9mm bullets. Should he face the metal exoskeleton armor-wearing machinery holy cult soldiers, it would be a very tough battle. How many are there in total? Treasure Hunter Rat had a normal search range of 500 meters, while its search range for metallic items could reach as far as 1000 meters. Lin Ke's only advantage was to use the metal radar, aka Treasure Hunter Rat, to conduct targeted attacks and take them out one by one, fighting like a guerrilla in the city ruins. Squeak, squeak. Hey? 1. Lin Ke was startled again. Machinery holy cult soldiers weren't programmed to head out alone. All low-level machinery holy cult soldiers were programmed to use microchip battle tactics, and these programmed tactics required at least 5 people. Lin Ke hung the tactical machine pistol on the bandolier and loaded a full ammo clip into the pistol. Then, he stroked Treasure Hunter Rat's little head and said, "Let's go. Bring me to that person." Treasure Hunter Rat had already cleaned off all the blood and dirt on itself. After shaking off the remaining dust on its body, it ran to the front and led the way. Lin Ke followed at the back and realized that this was a route leading out of the maze. Treasure Hunter Rat stopped at the maze entrance and squeaked a few times to indicate that the person was right outside. Lin Ke pressed his back against the wall. Then, he twisted his neck bit by bit past the edge of the wall. A figure entered his peripheral vision. The very next second, Lin Ke's expression turned into one of astoundment, and he looked absolutely stunned. 1. It was a tanned little fatty wearing the same flax clothing as Lin Ke. He was even carrying a full and bulging camouflage-patterned bag on his back. 2. Lin Ke's brows knitted together tightly. He couldn't verify that person's identity. Although the little fatty was also wearing a slave's clothes, all the slaves Lin Ke had previously seen were skin and bones and malnourished. He had never seen a slave so fat that they were practically dripping oil before. 1. Are we even still talking basic logic here anymore? Treasure Hunter Rat, go over and sound him out. Don't try to kill him, and don't attack his vitals. 1. Treasure Hunter Rat ran its little paws through the fur on its head a few times and tidied up its hairstyle. Then, it ran out while staying close to the wall. Underscore. Lin Ke hid in the shadows to observe the tanned fatty and roughly determine the fellow's background through his reactions. Treasure Hunter Rat went along the wall edges and crept forward quietly. As for the little fatty, he was hunched over, and his big, black, and round eyes were alert and full of life. They darted left and right warily, watching out for danger like a cat. The moment he felt like something was even a little amiss, he would scuttle quickly over to a pile of junk by the roadside and hide behind it, waiting till everything was calm again before poking his head out to observe his surroundings. Lin Ke did a count with his fingers in just a short distance of over 100 meters. The sound of the wind and the noise from junk being blown about had scared the fatty into hiding by the roadside 4 times. That fat little slave was cautious to the extreme. However, Lin Ke was even more cautious than him. Before his suspicions were fully and clearly explained, and before he had sounded the other party out and got a clear idea of his capabilities, he would never make any rash actions. The fatty turning up here was already very strange and inconceivable in itself. Both the Wastelands gang mercenaries and himself had escaped from the quicksand by driving. The fatty didn't have a vehicle, he was even carrying a bag that was filled to the brim. How had he made his way out? But Lin Ke would have the opportunity to verify the truth very soon. After panicking at the sound of wind, the little fatty stuck his head out again. After making certain that there was no danger, he began to scuttle forward quickly again while hunched over. All of a sudden, Treasure Hunter Rat slipped out from behind the obstacles and ran toward the fat little slave. When the little fatty saw a ball of grayish-black matter running and moving about at high speed on the ground, he was so frightened that he immediately turned tail and ran. However, how could a barrel of moving lard possibly outrun the lightning-quick Treasure Hunter Rat? With a leap, Treasure Hunter Rat grabbed hold of the little fatty's coarse flax clothing and swiftly climbed onto him. The little fatty was so frightened that he howled non-stop and rolled about on the ground. Lin Ke hadn't even ordered Treasure Hunter Rat to bite him. It was purely just climbing all over him. Just this alone, and the little fatty's voice was already akin to the squeals of a pig being slaughtered. 2. Now that his wariness had been mostly reduced, what was left was to dispel his doubts. Lin Ke walked out of the maze and lifted the gun, pointing it at the little fatty. How did you escape? The rolling little fatty didn't even cast a glance at Lin Ke, who had spoken suddenly. He straight up dropped to his knees and begged for mercy while covering his head with both hands. Please spare my life, I beg you. You can capture me and bring me back. You can do anything you want as long as you don't kill me. Raise your head. The little fatty raised his head. When he saw Lin Ke, who was similarly dressed in slave clothing, pointing a gun at him, he couldn't quite react for a moment there. The big boss over there, I'm asking you how you managed to escape. Bang! Lin Ke fired at the ground right after speaking. The fat all over the little fatty trembled, and he didn't dare to move. I escaped by hiding in a jeep's trunk. That's impossible. Security in the mercenary camp is very tight. With a big physique like yours, how could you have gotten past the camp's heavy defenses to hide in the jeep's trunk? The little fatty was close to tears. He hurriedly replied, I'm in charge of cooking and food supplies. Last night, when I was delivering supper to the mercenaries, I happened to overhear that there would be an outbound mission today. So, I went back the very same night to pack my bags and even stole quite a bit of food from the kitchen. I entered the barracks while it was dark and hid in the trunk in advance just to wait for a chance to escape when they carried out their mission today. Lin Ke was 90% convinced by his words. Considering how tanned the fatty was, Lin Ke wouldn't discover his presence as long as he didn't break into a grin at night, even if he stood right in front of him. 6. Lin Ke then checked the little fatty's data. As your level is close to the targets, you can only see partial information when using Scout on this target. Name? Race, human. Level, 1. Status, slave. Health points, 50/50ths. Energy points, 50/50ths. Stats, power, 4, agility, 5, endurance, 5, intelligence, 4, energy, 1, charm, 3, luck, 9, 4. Appraisal, do you know what having one's wishes come true means? He was certainly a slave. It was just that the little fatty's stats were such that even Lin Ke's teeth chattered upon seeing them. Why? Why did he get to have 3 points for charm and 9 points for luck? What's your name? Forbes. 2. Lin Ke had a rather complex look in his eyes as he gazed at Forbes. His escape had been extremely perilous the whole way. He had only managed to survive by fighting a battle of both wits and courage with the mercenaries. In contrast, this fatty had it going for him. He had won, even when he had done nothing at all. 6s. Chapter 6, Gaining a New Family Member. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Open your backpack, and let me take a look. Lin Ke refused to spare any detail. He would only let down his guard after a thorough check. Forbes didn't dare to show any hint of hesitation. He hastily took off the backpack, unzipped it, and poured out all of its contents: canned food, water, compressed biscuits, paper napkins, and a bowling ball-sized chunk of cooked beef wrapped in cling wrap. Just as these hard currencies attracted Lin Ke's attention. Clang! A gleaming kitchen knife fell out of the backpack, producing a crisp, clear, and melodious clang. Forbes squeezed out a smile that could practically blind Lin Ke and said, I'm a cook, honest. This knife is to be used to cut the beef. Lin Ke didn't say anything but watched Forbes' performance quietly instead. All right. I admit that it's for self-defense as well. With his gun pointed at Forbes, Lin Ke gave another order. Get up, lift your clothes, and turn one round. Forbes looked terrified. His eyes were widened as big as bells, and the whiteness of his sclera contrasted with his dark, tan skin, making his eyes look extremely, exaggeratedly, and incredibly big. 2. Forbes covered his buttocks with his hands, a shifty look in his eyes as sweat drenched him. He had heard about such things before in the camp. After all, the desert was very distant and remote. Apart from the slaves, only mercenaries were in the camp. Forbes bit down hard on his lip and evaluated the risks in his current situation. The other party was armed with a gun. Should Lin Ke fire, he would be finished. As for himself, it would be nothing more than just suffering a bit of bleeding and pain. It would pass with a bit of tolerance. 1. He didn't go through so much trouble to escape, risking being discovered by the mercenaries and beaten to death, just to die in a place like this. For the sake of survival, I'll put up with it. Hurry up. Stop dawdling. Lin Ke waved the pitch-black pistol he was holding again, the threat in his actions rather strong. Forbes took a deep breath. Both his hands, which were clutching his flax clothing, were shaking. Then, he lifted the flax clothing and turned around, such that his back was to Lin Ke. With his eyes shut, he gritted his teeth hard and said, "In that case, please take care of me." Lin Ke, black guy face. JPG 13. In the Wastelands Gang headquarters. The switchboard operator's signal was cut off. What the slave had shouted at the end had honestly wholly shattered his perception of this issue. He reported the satellite phone video, voice data content, and the situation all to the supervisor in charge. The supervisor in charge then hastily brought the information with him to report to the higher UPS. "General, this is the latest news from the front line. Our very last soldier has also fallen in battle. I have a video and audio recording that the satellite phone captured at the end here." As the video and audio recording played, the tent fell into pin-drop silence. "You can withdraw the rescue helicopter now. What was the point of sending a helicopter over when the men were already dead? The machinery holy cult might even still be lying in wait there to ambush them." "Have you determined his identity?" "Yes, we have. This person was captured from a desert trade caravan last year by soldiers from the 52nd Camp. He was later sent into a mixed unit in the slave camp to join the ancient ruins excavation project. Judging from the timeline, it is indeed rather fishy. In that case, he's most probably a spy that the machinery holy cult planted. He might just be related to the destruction of the ancient ruins this time." Bang! In a towering rage, the general smashed his fist onto the table. This ancient ruins excavation project was a project that he had fought against the masses' opinions in meetings and spent an exorbitant amount of money to undertake. But now, after he had spent the money and invested human resources and material supplies into it, everything was ruined by a sudden round of quicksand. 1. Everything had gone up in smoke. The general rubbed his temples and said with a deep frown, "Send experts to the ancient ruins site and investigate the situation. There's an underground crypt at the bottom of the ruins, so why would quicksand appear for no reason? Other than that, the machinery holy cult spy is now the only one that knows the inside story about what has actually happened. Distribute and spread his photograph far and wide. I don't care whether you go to bounty hunters or assassins, I only care about the results. Capture him. I want to know the truth behind what had really happened. I don't believe he can stay in the machinery holy cult's territory and not come out for his whole life." 4. After the order was given from the tent in the Wastelands Gang headquarters, the incident investigation team also set off for the sunken ancient ruins. However, nobody would have ever imagined that this investigation would end up becoming the fuse that led to a change in all the major forces' status quo. With a complex look on his face, Lin Ke stared at Forbes, or rather, at his two big butt cheeks. Lin Ke's subconsciousness told him that the fatty in front of him was an extremely dangerous person. 3. Someone that could stick his butt in the air anytime and anywhere was definitely a merciless person. 1. Treasure hunter rat, who was standing at the side, stretched its paws out and covered its eyes. However, there was a huge gap between its paws, it couldn't take its eyes off what it was seeing. It glanced at Forbes, and then at Lin Ke, its owner. Its tiny little eyes were filled with great puzzlement. 2. What exactly is your head filled with? You can put down your clothes now. Lin Ke shifted his gaze away from Forbes' tanned buttocks, a watery mist vaguely visible at the corners of his eyes. It stung his eyes. Forbes trembled violently, looking as if he had seen a ghost. Did that mean that he didn't take an interest in me? So, I don't have any more value left in me? Am I going to be shot to death? Forbes put down his flax clothing dejectedly, two tear stains shining brightly in the sunlight on his pitch-dark face. He turned around and dropped onto his knees with a plop. Then, he cried and pleaded. "Please give me a way out, I beg you. I'm willing to do anything." Lin Ke engaged the safety catch on the pistol and placed it on his bandolier before slowly walking over to Forbes. He said, "I'm also a slave, so I have no need to kill you. What are your plans after this?" Forbes raised his head in surprise and sized up Lin Ke. There was only one word in his eyes: doubt. The mercenaries were all big, muscular men, but the slave in front of him was so frail and skinny. Even a gust of wind could blow him off his feet. With a physique like that, how could he have possibly defeated the mercenaries and escaped? Forbes had heard the fight taking place in the green-walled maze when he was climbing out of the jeep's trunk. In his opinion, this person in front of him must either be a mercenary or someone with a special position in the Wastelands gang and was disguising himself as a slave to sound him out for information. Lin Ke heaved a sigh, feeling somewhat helpless. To be honest, what he had taken an interest in was Forbes' backpack full of food. If Forbes had been an enemy, he'd have fired the gun and killed him, without any hesitation or psychological burden whatsoever, for the treasures. However, the timid fatty was also a slave that had been suffering. His successful escape from the quicksand had been wholly dependent on luck. Lin Ke honestly couldn't bear to bring himself to rob the fatty of his supplies and abandon him here all by himself. Moreover, he had only just escaped from a perilous area, yet he still had to brave through another danger known as the machinery holy cult next. Having another person around would be an additional helping hand. Follow me! Lin Ke barked fiercely at him. Then, he walked in front of him and led the way. Forbes knelt on the ground dazedly, without reacting at all. Treasure Hunter Rat ran behind him and stretched out its little paws to push the fatty's mountain-like body into moving. However, even after using all of its strength, there was still no reaction from Forbes whatsoever. Treasure Hunter Rat puffed out its cheeks. It scrabbled at Forbes' clothes and ran to his neck. Then, with one paw clutching his collar, it used its other paw to tickle Forbes's neck. Upon feeling small, sharp claws drawing across the surface of his skin, Forbes immediately regained his senses and shivered, breaking into goosebumps and dashing out quickly. Treasure Hunter Rat was just like a knight that was currently trying to tame an irritable black wild boar with a rope in his hands. It controlled the direction in which Forbes sprinted in with his collar. 3. Bring him to the maze and wait for me there. Treasure Hunter Rat rode on Forbes and ran to the maze in advance. Due to Forbes's large size, which resulted in too strong of a momentum when they turned corners, they couldn't stop in time when they came to where the mercenaries' corpses were. Thus, he ended up smashing his head into the green wall and passed out. 1. Treasure Hunter Rat jumped off Forbes and turned in midair before steadily landing on the ground in the end. Forbes gradually came to. His vision was still very blurry when he first opened his eyes, but the scene that vaguely entered his sight shocked him wide awake at once. Cold sweat trickled down all over him. He saw that Lin Ke was cutting something with a dagger while two corpses dyed in blood laid next to him. At once, Forbes shrank back and hid at the corner of the wall. He was extremely terrified, as if he had already imagined his own ending. You're awake. Lin Ke tossed a pair of army boots over to Forbes. 1. Forbes received such a fright that he ducked. It was only after he rubbed his eyes that he saw that it was a pair of army boots. After some modification, the closed round toe cap at the front was cut off. The army boots had turned into open-toed sandals. Forbes took another look at the two corpses lying on the ground. They looked like mercenaries in both physique and appearance. The green t-shirt on the upper body of one of them had already been soaked red by blood, whereas the other corpse's upper body was straight up naked. One could clearly see the bullet holes on this body. Try them and see if they fit. Forbes felt like his mind was a total mess now. He couldn't understand what was going on right now at all. He could only let himself be manipulated by someone else as though he was a puppet. He was forced to wear the army boots, which exposed all 5 toes on one foot. How should one describe this? The boot had been cut off a little too much, so his toes were a little too exposed. However, it was all right in other aspects. Lift your foot and let me take a look. Forbes raised both of his feet immediately, not daring to slight Lin Ke in the least. After looking at them for a while, Lin Ke muttered to himself, "Seems like I cut off a bit too much. I understand now." With a dagger in his hand, he then buried himself into sawing another pair of undamaged army boots. These army boots had belonged to the mercenaries, so the shoe sizes were relatively larger. They totally dragged against the ground when Lin Ke slipped his feet into them, making them rather inconvenient. He was going to traverse the gobi that was under the machinery holy cult's control next. If he went barefoot, it wouldn't take long before his feet would be covered in blood. Unlike the deserts where he could go about barefoot, rock-hard ground and broken rocks were everywhere in the gobi. While concentrating on cutting the boots, Lin Ke said, "I am indeed a slave, but I escaped by killing the two of them. The ancient ruins have been buried by quicksand, and the Wastelands gang definitely won't let this matter rest. Staying in the desert is tantamount to suicide. The gobi is the machinery holy cult's territory, and that is an even more terrifying existence than the Wastelands gang." As he spoke, Lin Ke also sized up Forbes. He said, "They love fleshy people full of lard all over their bodies like you the most. If you're captured as a human battery, it'll be a living hell for you." 1. Forbes shivered and hugged himself, crossing his arms in front of his chest. The machinery holy cult capturing live humans to make them into energy batteries was something that everyone in the desert knew. The mere mention of it alone could silence babies and make them stop crying. "I'm preparing to traverse the gobi now and escape to the Freedom Federation's Sand City in the north. What are your plans?" Forbes's entire mind was a puddle of goo. Back then, he had only thought of escaping the slave camp. As for what came after the escape, he hadn't given that any consideration at all. He couldn't make a peep even after half a day. After Lin Ke was done cutting the boots, he slipped his feet into them to try them out. It was just enough for his toes to extend, yet they didn't have any extra unnecessary space, they fit just right. Lin Ke then took off one of the mercenaries' trousers. After a quick measure, he cut them into a length suitable for him. In just a few minutes, he had changed into camouflage trousers and open-toed army boots. One had to admit that the feeling of wearing trousers and shoes really set one's heart at ease. After being dazed for a moment, Forbes finally opened his mouth timidly and asked, "Can we cross the gobi and safely arrive at the Freedom Federation?" Lin Ke didn't say any more. He got up and lifted his flax clothing. A tactical machine pistol, the Glock 17 pistol, and the 2 ammo clips that hung on the bandolier could be seen. He also held a dagger in his hand. Treasure Hunter Rat stood on Lin Ke's shoulder, its 2 tiny little paws crossed in front of its chest and its little head tilted 45 degrees upward. They looked like the standard picture of classic, morally upright superheroes gathering. "All right, I'll join you." A brief moment later. "Boss Lin Ke, thank you for making shoes for me. I should be the one thanking you. If I hadn't used you to experiment a little, how could I have made army boots that fit so well?" 7s. Chapter 7, The Invincible Ability to Grasp Things. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Lin Ke did not spare the blood-drenched mercenary t-shirt. The t-shirt of the mercenary whose heart was pierced was soaked in blood. No one could tell how it used to look like. Lin Ke cut the other t-shirt into strips. Except for the arm bandage, he stuffed everything into Forbes' backpack. "To cross the gobi from here, I need to travel at least 100 kilometers. All resources must be utilized carefully." Lin Ke counted the food in the backpack. For eating, he had compressed biscuits, energy bars, and a large pile of beef. It was sufficient for them to reach Sand City. However, they only had 2 liters of clean water. No matter how he planned, it was not enough. Lin Ke thought about it for a while before pointing to the northwest. "Let's go northwest." Forbes was a little puzzled. "Boss, isn't Sand City in the north? Why are we going northwest? Isn't that a detour? The machinery holy cult needs a lot of water to smelt metal. However, water is the most scarce resource in the gobi. Hence, they dug a canal from the western end of the mainland to Machinery City. Let's head northwest. Although the distance is a little longer, we can replenish our water resources. Ah! We have to go to Machinery City? Will we run into the Machinery Holy Cult? I don't want to be captured and become a human battery. We are just making a detour to get water. Although mechanical soldiers do patrol the canal, we won't encounter them as long as we are careful. You have to trust our little guide. Treasure Hunter Rat had its hands on its hips. It held its head high as it puffed its chest. Detecting metals was its forte. How dare this fat, black man have any doubts? 3. Forbes quickly bowed his head to apologize. After knowing how the two mercenaries died, he was in awe of Treasure Hunter Rat. The wound was bandaged, the spoils were distributed, the supplies were accounted for, the route was set, and a new player Forbes joined the team. Lin Ke thought about it and decided to make another pet before setting off. The monster synthesis module was quite easy to use. Treasure Hunter Rat had also played a significant role in the previous battles. If he had more pets, their safety along the way would be greatly increased. Just as Lin Ke was thinking about what materials to use for the second pet, several system notifications interrupted his thoughts. You triggered the sea-level mission Prey Hunted by the Wasteland. Survival missions cannot be rejected. Mission prompt: the Vengeful Wastelands gang has noted down your appearance. As the only survivor who escaped the quicksand in the underground crypt, the Wastelands gang is eager to learn the truth of the incident and its secrets from you. You are now marked as prey and wanted for bounty. Please be careful at all times. 2. Task time, April 13th, Year 42 of the Wasteland Calendar to December 31st, Year 42 of the Wasteland Calendar. Mission reward, based on mission performance. Sea-level mission, survival mission. Lin Ke was stunned after reading the content. The Wasteland gang is coming after me. Survival mission was a term used by the upper class in the system. This type of mission had another name among players: hunt and kill mission. There was only one mission requirement: survive for the specified time. Players usually had other things to do besides missions. However, it was basically very difficult to move around once one triggered a hunt and kill mission. As long as you were online, an enemy would appear anytime, anywhere, tiring you out. A little carelessness might get you killed, causing the mission to fail. The mission rewards were rather bare-bone. One would also be evaluated according to the number of enemies they dealt with within the specified time frame. Points would be awarded based on the evaluation. There was something quite hard to comprehend here. If one were strong enough to deal with all the enemies, the rewards would be better if one directly headed to the enemy's base and defeated them all. If one were not strong enough, they would be exhausted by the enemy's pursuit and be easily killed, not receiving any rewards. Moreover, the mission could not be rejected. Be it during the beta test or after the game was launched for a few years, this type of mission continued to give players a headache. I wanted to throw this problem to the Machinery Holy Cult, but it looks like I have no choice. I am going to pay a heavy price during the 8 months when the bounty is active. Originally, Lin Ke thought that he would be safe after escaping to Sand City. He didn't expect the Wastelands gang to issue a bounty. He was in a difficult situation now. Lin Ke became more convinced that he needed to prepare a few more helpers. His most urgent task now was to cross the Gobi, and the most common element in the Gobi was sand. Perhaps he could use this as a starting point. Forbes, can you help me get some sand? Forbes was already carrying his luggage and was ready to go on the road. This sudden request caught him by surprise. Boss, aren't we going to the canal in the northwest? Why the sudden request for sand? Lin Ke patted Forbes on the shoulder and said, go get some sand, this can save your life. Hearing the words save your life, Forbes stopped questioning Lin Ke. He immediately put down his backpack and ran to get some sand. Lin Ke patted his belly and said to Treasure Hunter Rat, who was hiding in his ammunition belt's vacant pocket, little treasure, can you help me find another rat that is similar to you? As soon as his voice sounded, a squeak traveled from under Lin Ke's flax clothing. Treasure hunter rat jumped from the ammunition belt onto the ground and ran towards the ruins. This time, Lin Ke was going to use sand and a rat to synthesize a new creature. After all, the gobi was full of sand. It would only be fitting if he had a rat with sand properties. 6. What's more, Lin Ke didn't have any other chances in an environment like this ruined city. After a while, Forbes ran back with a fistful of sand, beaming from ear to ear. "Boss, I have managed to get you some sand." At the same time, Treasure Hunter Rat brought a rat back from the city ruins. Treasure Hunter Rat led the way, but the rat behind paused every 3 steps, hesitating to move forward. Its small eyes flashed with panic. Lin Ke did not choose to synthesize a second pet on a whim. After getting deducted 10 HP from being hit by the bullet, 10 health points from the synthesis of Treasure Hunter Rat, and another 3 from the irregular state of bleeding, he only had 17 health points left. The 800 experience points he gained from killing 4 Wasteland Gang mercenaries were sufficient for him to rise to level 2. In Destiny, one's health points and energy would be completely restored instantly upon leveling up as long as one didn't raise their level during battle or when they possessed an abnormal condition. 2. In order to maximize the value of his HP, Lin Ke planned to synthesize a pet before raising his level. This was equivalent to saving 10 HP. He had no other choice. A kid with a poor background had to learn how to be street smart early. Lin Ke already had the habit of making every cent count imprinted into him. Lin Ke stretched out his hand. Treasure Hunter Rat climbed on Lin Ke's shoulder whilst beckoning at that extremely wary rat. Lin Ke grabbed the wary rat with his left hand and used his right to motion Forbes to pour the sand onto his hand. Forbes didn't understand what Lin Ke was going to do, but he did as requested and poured the sand into Lin Ke's hands. You obtained 80 grams of gravel 1. Lin Ke entered the synthesis interface. To be honest, he did not have much expectation for this synthesis. Both the gravel and the rat were of white quality. No matter what, the synthesized pet could not be stronger than Treasure Hunter Rat. He just wanted to see this rat's abilities in the Gobi environment. Also, Lin Ke was new to this game-shattering Zerg's Nest fragment. He hoped to master its tricks by exploring and synthesizing. Rat, adult, plus gravel, 80 grams, equals 65% success rate. Synthesis consumes 10 health points. Synthesize? Yes/no. Lin Ke frowned slightly. This time, the success rate is a bit low. However, it still looks like a good deal to me since it has a 65% success rate and a 10 HP cost. Synthesize. The gravel was gradually absorbed by his left palm. His right palm produced the sticky blood threads, which gradually engulfed the struggling rat and formed a palm-sized blood cocoon. Blood cocoon incubation countdown, 20 seconds. Forbes, who was initially indifferent, gasped in shock as his jaw fell. He was the one who poured the sand onto Lin Ke's palm. He now watched the sand disappear in front of him while the lively rat became a strange and sinister-looking blood cocoon. Boss, why you have supernatural abilities? Lin Ke's attention was focused on the blood cocoon. Moreover, it was not easy to explain the game-shattering item to him. Thus, he simply answered, well, sort of. Forbes was shocked as he had a sudden realization. No wonder boss could order Treasure Hunter Rat to kill the 2 mercenaries. He has supernatural abilities. It all makes sense now. Forbes's gaze gradually steadied. I must serve boss well along the way and follow him closely even after we have left the Gobi. 1. Live a comfortable life by following superpower holders. This was a common view held by his people. 20 seconds passed, and the blood cocoon in Lin Ke's hand was torn apart by a pair of small claws. Sand flowed through the cracks of the blood cocoon, and a pink rat poked out its head curiously, observing its surroundings. Monster synthesis is complete. Obtained gerbil, white. 1. Monster stats. Name, gerbil, young. Quality, white. Race, rodent. Stats, sand affinity. Level, 1. Initial skill 1, Desertification LV1, a unique ability to the gerbil. It is able to turn its body into sand and maintain this state for 1 minute. Limited to 2 uses a day. 2. Initial skill 2, Desert Affinity Passive, movement speed increased by 30% when in the desert. Evaluation, the Rat King of the Desert. It can perfectly blend into the desert, mysteriously appearing and disappearing like a ghost. It possesses good speed and is proficient in hiding. Needs to be careful. Since biological and synthetic material components had a certain level of incompatibility, problems may surface in the future. After reading the data, Lin Kei's eyes gave off a joyous light. This creature is simply tailor-made for crossing the Gobi. At the same time, he gained a new understanding of the synthesis interface. Although gerbil was just a white quality pet, it unexpectedly possessed 2 initial skills. With these 2 skills, this little guy could simply move around the Gobi Desert at will. However, the incompatibility between organisms and materials used during synthesis, which was stated in the evaluation, could give birth to some problems. Although he didn't know what kind of problems would appear, Lin Kei finally understood another contributing factor behind the success rate shown during the synthesis formula preview. The success rate also took the affinity between biological and synthetic materials into consideration. Standing on Lin Kei's palm, gerbil looked around, curious about its surroundings. Lin Kei couldn't wait to turn around and walk towards the desert so that he could test out gerbil's skills and speed. Forbes, carry our stuff, and keep up. Forbes saw a pink rat emerge from the blood cocoon and was so stunned that his jaw dropped. He could only stare at it with wide-open eyes. He picked up his bags and quickly walked alongside Lin Kei. There were many doubts in his head. 1. Boss, why are we going back? To try out gerbil's abilities at the edge of the desert. This little thing is called gerbil. Lin Kei nodded. The advantage of having someone around was that he could share his joy with them anytime, anywhere. Gerbil can move extremely quickly in the desert, it can also transform into sand. After entering the desert, it is like a fish in water. Forbes's eyes widened. It was hard to imagine that this little rodent had such strong abilities. He also understood why Boss asked him to grab a handful of sand just now. But boss, this gerbil is so tiny. When it is placed in the desert for experiments, won't it run away? Lin Kei waved his hand confidently. Impossible. With the special blood bond, how could it run away? Lin Kei and Forbes walked all the way back to the periphery of the city ruins that had been eroded by the desert. Lin Kei squatted down and placed his palm on the sand. He then said, Gerbil, show me your strength. Gerbil understood its master's Lin Kei's command and glanced back at him curiously. Its pair of innocent, small eyes met an expectant gaze. The gerbil squeaked a few times and jumped onto the sand warily. As soon as its little paws touched the desert, gerbil's eyes suddenly glowed. It looked as if it had discovered a new continent and began walking in the desert excitedly. Initially, it walked around cautiously. Now, it was just running around wildly. Lin Kei's and Forbes's eyes could not keep up with gerbil's movements. Gerbil moved extremely fast, and its fur was the same color as the desert. It eventually became a series of afterimages. Boss is amazing. Its speed is too fast. Congratulations, boss, for obtaining such an amazing pet. It was with the help of his glib tongue rather than his skills that he became a kitchen assistant in the Wastelands gang's slave camp. The corners of Lin Kei's mouth curled up. Although a 30% movement speed increase didn't seem much on paper, it was extremely significant in reality. Working with gerbil in the Gobi would benefit him greatly. Use desertification. Lin Kei issued instructions to gerbil using his mind. The next instant, gerbil suddenly turned into a pile of sand and quickly merged with the desert. The only visible was a lump of moving sand, producing a clear trail as it moved. After that, Lin Ke saw a small hole appear in the sand, and no tracks could be seen afterward. This skill is a little too powerful, it's almost like stealth. Lin Ke did not expect that Gerbil's body could completely merge with the desert. There were absolutely zero traces after it dove into the sand. This ability was extremely powerful in certain situations. Now, Lin Ke was not afraid of encountering machinery holy cult soldiers in the Gobi. "Gerbil, come back," yelled Lin Ke and waited for Gerbil to return. His shout echoed around the empty desert, but Lin Ke couldn't see any traces of movement on the surface of the sand. "This is amazing. I can't see anything at all, as though it is invisible," Forbes exclaimed from the side. Lin Ke was proud of himself. His understanding of synthesis was top-notch. Unmatched in both theory and practice. 1. However, Lin Ke had waited for more than 10 seconds and still didn't see Gerbil return. "Gerbil! Stop being naughty, come back quick," yelled Lin Ke again and tried to sense the location of Gerbil. However, he could only sense the location of treasure hunter rat on his shoulder. He couldn't find Gerbil at all. Thump! Lin Ke suddenly felt something was wrong. Although he didn't know how far his sensing range was, he couldn't sense anything at all. He was very anxious. "Gerbil! Gerbil! 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 Ger, bil! Ger, bil, 1. 7s. Chapter 8, The Gobi Mirage, Machinery City. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Lin Ke's voice, which sounded close to breaking down, resounded in the desert. The only thing that responded to him was the unfeeling sound of the wind. "Little treasure, has Gerbil really left?" Treasure hunter rat sniffed about with great effort. It was hard to tell whether it was because Gerbil was already outside of its search range or that Gerbil didn't carry any scent after it had turned into sand. In any case, it certainly couldn't be found anymore. Squeak, squeak. Lin Ke's heart felt cold and drafty. He finally knew what the so-called problems may surface in the future meant now. He had great need of Gerbil's abilities when traversing the Gobi, but it was all gone now. All gone. Forbes, who was standing at the side, hadn't sensed the hopeless atmosphere yet. He was still craning his neck and staring hard into the distance. He asked, "Boss, why hasn't Gerbil come back yet? Is it too curious about the desert because it has only just been born?" Spurt. Listen. That was the sound of something stabbing into Lin Ke's heart. "Forbes, let's get ready to set off." 1. Forbes was a little confused. "Boss, we're not waiting for Gerbil to come back anymore." Lin Ke sounded disappointed as he replied, "To celebrate Gerbil's birth, I've given it a big present." "When did you give it a present? How come I don't know about it?" Upon seeing Lin Ke turning around, Forbes cast another few glances at the desert before he hastily followed after him and asked, "Boss, what did you give it?" "Freedom." One could say that the pet's escape this time was a lesson for Lin Ke. The material's compatibility rate was still a very important factor in the synthesis success rate. 6. After spending more than half an hour in the city ruins, Lin Ke didn't plan on staying here any longer. Since the Wastelands gang had issued a bounty on his head, who knew if the helicopter was already on the way here? There was no need to stay here any longer and waste time, which would only end up increasing the risks. Lin Ke walked in front with the satellite phone in his hand while Forbes followed closely beside him with the backpack on his back. Treasure hunter rat stood on Lin Ke's shoulder with a serious demeanor like a little sentinel. It sniffed the wind blowing across the Gobi, carefully distinguishing the components and scents within it. Lin Ke quickly got out of the awkward atmosphere caused by Gerbil's escape and focused on his stats interface. After the synthesis, he had only 7 HP left, which wasn't enough for him to synthesize other pets. Thus, Lin Ke decided to just level up instead. Leveling up from level 1 to level 2 will consume 400 EXP. Will you level up? Yes/no. Yes. Lin Ke chose to level up without any hesitation. Both his health points and energy points made a full recovery. Name, Lin Ke. Race, human. Level, 2. EXP, 400. Class, N/A. Status, slave. Health points, 60/60ths. Energy points, 40/40ths. Stats, power, 3, agility, 3, endurance, 6, intelligence, 4, energy, 2, charm, 1, luck, 1. Latent capacity points, 3. Talent, N/A. Skills, N/A. Equipment, Sharp Dagger, white, Glock 17 pistol, white, Bezos T1 tactical machine pistol, white. Special abilities, Basic Driving, 40%, Basic Marksmanship, 11%. Appraisal, you're really a lucky one. In Destiny, players gain 3 latent capacity points with every level up. Players could allocate these latent capacity points to any of the 7 main attributes. Power, agility, endurance, and intelligence could be found in most games, so their functions need not be expounded on much. They correspond to the player's offensive power, movement and attack speed, health points, and energy points, respectively. Of the 4 attributes, endurance and intelligence had a ratio of 1:10 when converting to health points and energy points, respectively. The energy attribute represented the player's affinity with energy. Having an energy attribute of more than 5 points meant that the player was a so-called psychic in the game. Psychics could use and manipulate their energy to carry out attacks. The common psychics manipulated all sorts of elemental powers, while the special ones could achieve things like psychokinesis, creating illusions, etc. There were 4 main categories for job classes in Destiny: martial arts type, supernatural ability type, mechanical type, and the mystery type. Several more concrete classes were under these 4 main categories. A player could also learn a subclass when they reached level 20. As such, there were a lot of combinations and ways to play the game. However, if one were to talk about the most crucial element in the game, it would no doubt be the EXP bar. Not only could EXP be used to increase a player's level, but it could also be used to raise skill levels, special ability levels, and even pet levels. These would be further explained in the future. Back to Lin Ke for now. After advancing to level 2, Lin Ke gained 3 allocable latent capacity points. However, after some consideration, he decided not to allocate them to any of his attributes. For now, having a full health bar and energy bar is enough for the escape. The 3 latent capacity points may be a lifesaver during critical moments. Firstly, by saving the 3 latent capacity points, he could use them as a trump card. Secondly, Lin Ke had also received a cheating device upon his rebirth. At the moment, he hadn't decided on his main job class category yet, so he decided not to allocate his points rashly. Lin Ke exited the stats interface. Every 10 minutes, he would take out the satellite phone to check his GPS coordinates and adjust his direction. Traveling in the goba that stretched as far as the eye could see was rather boring, not to mention that they were even escaping on their own 2 legs. As a result, Lin Ke ended up using this period of time to deepen his understanding of Forbes. Forbes, how were you captured? Our tribe used to live in the desert. Later, the Wastelands gang swept through the desert and took over the tribe, and all the tribesmen were sent to the slave camps. Boss, our tribe actually also used to have psychics in the beginning. It was just that we were outnumbered. One psychic might be able to protect the tribe, but only death awaited even someone like that when faced against the Wastelands gang's firepower that numbered hundreds and thousands. Forbes's voice turned downcast as he spoke. Once upon a time, psychics were the symbol of a tribe's strength. Every tribe took pride in being able to give birth to psychics. However, when the Wastelands gang's steel and iron torrents came and engulfed everything, the psychics that had once been their pride had either died in battle while defending the tribes or bought over by the Wastelands gang's promise of riches, turning against their own just before the war. How did you turn from a coolie into a kitchen helper? Didn't the mercenaries say anything when you're so fat? With a body size like that of Forbes, probably nobody would believe him even if he said that he didn't steal any food. Forbes smiled in embarrassment and held his hand to his head as he replied, "To be honest, I only sneaked a couple of small bites in the beginning and wouldn't have been discovered at all. But one time, I was simply too hungry, so I stole and ate a chicken drumstick at night. In the end, as luck would have it, someone discovered me, so what happened? I was dragged out by the mercenaries, tied to a cross, and left out in the sun in the desert for 2 days and 2 nights. They only gave me water so that I wouldn't die, but didn't give me any food. Later on, they untied me and made me eat a few kilograms of sand. It was only then that they let me off." Forbes patted his firm and solid stomach and said, "I wasn't fat in the past, either. But ever since I ate the sand and my stomach ached for days, it started swelling slowly. My body also became unbearably swollen." Lin Ke fell into silence after hearing his story. Starved for 2 days and force-fed a few kilograms of sand, resulting in gut and intestinal obstruction and bloating, and in turn, a swollen and distended body. Those bastards! After a moment, Lin Ke said in consolation, "It'll be fine once we reach Sand City. We can buy an enhancing serum on the black market when we reach the city. We'll be able to discharge all the sand in your body after that." "Boss, how much does the enhancing serum cost?" $10,000 per tube. Forbes's eyes flew wide open, and he took in a sharp gasp of air. "That's so expensive. God knows when we'll be able to save up that amount of money. What was your job back in the tribe?" "I was a pallbearer. My dad and I, as well as a few relatives, offered burial services. We earned only $200 to $300 a month. I'm afraid I won't ever be able to afford a $10,000 enhancing serum in my entire lifetime." Forbes sounded disheartened. $10,000 was an astronomical sum of money to him. Even if he spent his whole life trying, he wouldn't be able to earn that much. That's not necessarily true. Unlike tribes like yours, where it's hard to get news, and the location is inaccessible, there are a lot of opportunities, as well as ways to earn money, in Sand City. The two of them chatted as they walked. At sunset, they found a huge gobi rock. Lin Ke and Forbes plucked out some withered tree branches nearby and lit a campfire. Wrapped in flax clothing, they curled up and passed the first night since Lin Ke transmigrated into the game. The next morning, Lin Ke felt something shaking his face left and right. When he opened his eyes, he realized that treasure hunter rat was working hard to use its 2 little paws to shake his head and wake him up. Lin Ke rubbed his sleepy, half-closed eyes and glanced at Forbes, who was snoring and sleeping deeply on the ground. "Little treasure, wake him up." After receiving orders, treasure hunter rat took a couple of steps, jumped onto Forbes, and bounced about on him, treating his stomach like a trampoline. When Forbes didn't react even after it bounced for a while, treasure hunter rat ran to his collar, spread its legs apart, and bent down into a solid full squat. Then, it clutched its 2 little paws into fists and "Atata-tatata." 1. A flurry of punches landed on Forbes's face like a heavy downpour, causing the fat on his cheeks to tremble wildly under the little fist's bombardment. 6. Number 2. Forbes woke up from his dreams in shock at once, howling as he clutched his face. After the 2 humans and 1 rodent replenished their energy slightly, Lin Ke took a glance at the 1 liter of clean water that they had left, and then at the numerical data on the satellite phone. "We covered 20 kilometers in half a day yesterday. We'll strive to cover 50 kilometers today. If nothing goes wrong, we'll reach Goria Grand Canal by this afternoon. We'll do some recharging when we reach the Grand Canal, find somewhere to rest after that, and persevere and walk for another day tomorrow. Once we cross Weeping Valley, we'll enter Sand City's borders. We'll be safe at that time. 2. Upon hearing Lin Kei's words, Forbes's eyes turned bright and shiny, twinkling with hope and agitation. By next evening at the latest, he would be able to bid farewell to the Strong Winds Desert and the desolate Gobi forever. He would be free soon. Lin Kei was also full of confidence. As long as they could cross the hurdle that was Goryeo Grand Canal and replenish their supplies today, the journey after that would be a lot safer. Although the whole stretch from desolate Gobi all the way to Weeping Valley was Machinery Holy Cult's territory, the Machinery Holy Cult's activity range was mostly centered at the south of Goryeo Grand Canal. They rarely patrolled past the Grand Canal. The stretch from Weeping Valley to the Grand Canal was more like a buffer zone. Although 42 years had already passed since the Day of Reckoning, be it Sand City or the Machinery Holy Cult, both were forces that were only born after the Day of Reckoning. They had accumulated some power, but they were still far from being able to engage in large-scale warfare. After the Day of Reckoning, the original status quo had been completely overturned, and new forces had gradually emerged. What had accompanied it was an ideology reformation. Philosophies on the future and destiny of humans, coupled with the birth of psychics, had led to an endless stream of many different extremist ideologies that gained a lot of support from people. The Machinery Holy Cult was exactly an organization like that. They believed that the merging of humans and machinery was the path to evolution in the future. 4. Low-level armored soldiers relied on the microchips implanted in their bodies to battle. Slightly higher-level soldiers were modified humans, where their physical bodies had been integrated with machinery. The highest-level mechanical reincarnation plan retained only the human brain while all other parts of the body were changed to replaceable mechanical components. As long as the brain was alive, mechanical immortality would be realized. At the same time, the Machinery Holy Cult had also developed bioenergy technology, where a normal human's bioenergy could be converted into electricity and used as an electricity supply. All the normal humans that they captured were stuffed into a nutrient fluid vessel and would become part of a gigantic battery, sinking into a dream that they thought was real until their very last bit of energy was wrung out of them. 5. Perhaps it was because they were about to escape the Gobi Desert, but Lin Kei and Forbes were a lot lighter on their feet today. In fact, they didn't even sit and rest for lunch. They found time to eat a bit of food on the way instead. All right, we'll start walking toward true north now. In another 20 kilometers, we'll reach Goryeo Grand Canal. After Lin Kei spoke, he touched the bandolier through his clothes and said, "Little treasure, time to come out and work." Treasure Hunter Rat stretched in an empty pocket of the bandolier before lazily climbing out from Lin Kei's clothes, its mouth slightly ajar as it yawned. They were going to reach the Grand Canal very soon. Lin Kei didn't wish to meet with any trouble. Treasure Hunter Rat had been on guard duty the whole time during the previous night and hadn't slept, so Lin Kei had allowed the little fellow to sleep and rest a little in the morning. Even a human would be lethargic and muddle-headed after staying up for a night, much less a rodent in its infancy stage. Have you rested enough? If you have, then it's time to work properly from now on. Treasure Hunter Rat squeaked a couple of times and patted its chest, indicating that Lin Kei could leave everything to it. The Grand Canal cut across the whole desolate Gobi, but rapid currents and heavy security were in every area except for one. Only this area in the canal's middle upper reach in the northwest had a protrusion where currents were slow due to terrain reasons during the digging process. Adding to the fact that this area was located in the canal's middle upper reaches, the number of patrolling Machinery Holy Cult soldiers here was the lowest as well. In the past, players crossed the Grand Canal by wading across this area when they couldn't afford helicopter rides or cars. Lin Kei naturally wasn't an exception. Although it had been 6 years, he still remembered the coordinates, 232, 093, 723, clearly. After using the satellite phone to adjust their direction, Lin Kei brought Forbes along with him and headed true north. Lin Kei chatted casually with Forbes while holding the satellite phone in one hand to check the coordinates, as well as to let it charge via solar power. At this moment, treasure hunter Rat, who was on his shoulder, suddenly started to squeak frantically. When Lin Ke raised his head and looked into the distance, he suddenly saw a mechanical city at the end of the gobi. It was currently moving slowly at the end of the horizon. When Forbes noticed that Lin Ke had stopped in his tracks, he looked toward where Lin Ke was looking and also saw the massive structure at the end of the horizon. A city fully constructed out of metal was actually, slowly but visibly, moving forward. Under the roasting of the scorching sun, steam rose from the ground at the end of the gobi. The area in the extreme far distance looked as if it was distorted. The mechanical city danced amid the distortion caused by the steam and moved quietly in the distance. That's a mirage in the gobi, right? I've finally seen it today. Forbes broke into a grin. He had heard of mirages when he was in the desert, but he had never seen one before. Little did he imagine that he would actually see one during his great escape. Not just that, it was even one that actually moved. How rare! In contrast, Lin Ke, who was standing beside him, fixedly stared at the distant scene with a stern expression. It was only after a long while that he finally said, "That's not a mirage. That's the Machinery Holy Cult's core Machinery City." "What? That's Machinery City?" The scorching sun was obviously burning hot, yet Forbes felt a chill all around him. "But how can a city move, boss? That must be a mirage, right?" Lin Ke put away the satellite phone and took out the pistol from his bandolier. With a serious countenance, he replied, "It's precisely because it moves that it must be the real Machinery City. The Machinery Holy Cult's greatest attainment, Machinery City, a city that moves." 8s. Chapter 9, A Smile from Forbes Makes Disaster or Fortune Hard to Predict. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. At the horizon, Machinery City was just like a black turtle, slowly moving horizontally in Lin Ke's line of sight. Lin Ke had an incredibly solemn look on his face. Even in all the scenarios that he had imagined, never would he have thought that Machinery City would pass by the canal's upper reach at this time. Although they could only see the gigantic Machinery City from a distance of 20 kilometers away, Lin Ke could already imagine the patrolling soldiers behind it as it migrated. It was just that no matter how Lin Ke searched through his memories, he simply couldn't remember any record of this particular migration of Machinery City in the wasteland annals. Moving from the lower reaches all the way to the upper reaches. Going by this, they are intending on heading to the estuary. "Boss, how about we take a detour?" pleaded Forbes in a trembling voice next to him. With Machinery City right in front, making the rash decision to go to the Grand Canal now was no different from committing suicide. Lin Ke shook his head and replied, "We can only continue forward now. We must wait for Machinery City to leave before we go over to get some water. Our water supply is not enough to sustain us if we make a detour. With Machinery City passing by Goria Grand Canal, crossing the canal later would undoubtedly become harder." To be on the safe side, Lin Ke decided to synthesize another pet. He looked around him, hoping to find an animal that he could synthesize in the surroundings. However, as far as the eye could see, the gobi was devoid of anything. Even at the very most, only 3 living things were in the surroundings: him, Forbes, and treasure hunter Rat. "Let's continue moving forward first. We'll be safe as long as we don't get within Machinery City's 5 kilometers wide warning range." "Boss, why do you know so much?" Forbes sighed emotionally. Boss had all this information at his fingertips all the time, whether it was regarding the Wastelands Gang or the Machinery Holy Cult. You may invite a fatal disaster if you know too much. Do you still want to know? Forbes immediately shut up and held his hands over his ears. "Boss, I beg you, please don't say anything else. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know." Lin Ke and Forbes continued to move forward. Although Machinery City looked as if it was moving very slowly, this was from a visual angle of 20 kilometers away. In actuality, it was moving at a very high speed. The machinery holy cult certainly had an extraordinary level of skill in the aspects of machine construction and dealing with metals to get a city of steel with a 5-kilometer diameter to speed along the Gobi at 120 kilometers per hour. Lin Ke observed his surroundings as he walked. He still wanted to synthesize another pet so that he could minimize the risks involved in breaking through the Grand Canal. However, what entered his sight was only the desolate Gobi. Even looking for a living thing that was still alive was already very difficult, much less one suitable to become a pet. The only things in abundance were ghastly white animal skeletons half covered in sand blown over by the Gobi winds. "Boss, look at the sky," said Forbes as he pointed to the sky. Lin Ke raised his head. Under the scorching sun, he saw 3 moving black dots circling above them continuously. With his eyes narrowed, Lin Ke tried to identify them. Right away, a jolt went through him, and he became high-spirited. Vultures. No wonder many more skeletons suddenly appeared in the Gobi after we got nearer to the Grand Canal. Lin Ke's mind ran at high speed. Vultures just so happen to be level 2 organisms, so they meet the condition for pet synthesis. Lin Ke raised his head again and took another look. The vultures were circling right above them. The vultures had evidently already set their sights on them, treating them as their prey. The only problem now, how were they going to get the vultures to come down from the sky? Lin Ke thought for a brief moment and said, "Forbes, I'm thinking of tricking the vultures into coming down. Put on a show with me." "Hey? How am I supposed to act? I've never acted before." "It's very simple, just give me an energy bar. After that, you can leave after you watch me collapse. Then, walk 2 to 3 kilometers in front and look for somewhere that's cool and has shade. Just sit there and wait for me, that'll do." Lin Ke's eyes swept across the area, and he found a not too big rock in front. He pointed at it and said, "Go over there and stay there later. No matter what happens here, don't come back. If you can do that, we will have a greater chance of crossing the Grand Canal safely." The moment Forbes heard that he could help Lin Ke out, he nodded like a little chick pecking at rice and agreed without even caring about what his task was. Lin Ke tore open the energy bar's packaging and held it in his mouth. Then, he said in a muffled voice to Forbes, "Yo can go now." Forbes had only just left when Lin Ke collapsed onto the desert with a plop. Forbes turned his head back and looked behind him. He subconsciously wanted to run back, but he was stopped by Lin Ke, who said, "What did you promise me just now? Hurry and go in front, just wait for me there." Upon seeing that his boss was all right, Forbes finally left, looking back every once in a while. Lin Ke's plan was very simple: playing possum. Playing possum might sound pretty easy, but it wasn't such an easy task when one was up against a careful and cautious vulture. Vultures usually wouldn't take the initiative to attack. It was only when they thought that their prey was on their last breath and on the verge of death that they would dare to fly over. Then, like an undertaker, they would quietly wait for their prey to breathe their last before coming forward to enjoy a delicious meal. Lin Ke laid on the Gobi and sunbathed lazily. Playing dead wasn't difficult. What was difficult was staying motionless for a long period of time. Lin Ke wanted an energy bar because he was already fully prepared to outwear the vultures. "I'll close my eyes and rest for a while. Inform me if there's anything up," instructed Lin Ke to treasure hunter rat telepathically. Forbes reached his designated destination after walking for a while. He followed his boss's instructions, sat there, and waited. In the sky, the vultures were still circling. They made no move to fly down. Forbes crossed his legs and waited for a very long time. He waited for so long that Machinery City had already vanished from the horizon. The 3 vultures in the sky had lowered the altitude at which they circled, but there was still a long way to go before they would land on the ground. The sun rose higher and higher, becoming more and more scorching. Forbes yawned, his upper and lower eyelids fighting each other in a disappointing move. Lin Ke laid on the ground with the Glock pistol in his hand. His body was already beginning to turn numb. By right, Lin Ke and Forbes could now attempt to cross Goryeo Grand Canal since Machinery City had already left. However, Lin Ke's personality had become even steadier as compared to the past after transmigrating to the game world. In the past, he could come back to life after he died in the game, but he was an NPC now. Should he die, he really wouldn't have any more chances left. Thus, everything had to be carried out with utmost caution. Although Lin Ke's eyes were shut, he could still access the system interface. It was 11 AM when he had laid down, and it was now 2 PM already. Lin Ke had played dead in the Goba for a whole 3 hours. His face burned in pain from the sun's roasting. During these 3 hours, Lin Ke had taken a nap. After he woke up, he seriously thought about the vulture synthesis and read the synthesis explanation word for word, sentence for sentence. Lastly, he simulated all the possible situations that might occur in his mind. With the exception of the most crucial component, everything else was ready. Lin Ke could already hear the flapping of the vulture's wings. He only needed to wait patiently now. Another hour passed. The vultures finally let down their guard, and with their wings flapping, landed a short distance away from Lin Ke. They began to approach him slowly. Lin Ke's outwhere the vultures' plan was about to succeed. All 3 vultures had already landed. They walked toward and approached Lin Ke from different directions. When Lin Ke heard that the vultures had already gotten within a meter of him, he held his breath, concentrated, and telepathically communicated with Treasure Hunter Rat. Little Treasure, count down from 10 seconds and attack. Treasure Hunter Rat also lowered its heartbeat to the minimum. It laid prostrate underneath Lin Ke's flax clothing, waiting to attack the vultures the moment its master issued his orders. Lin Ke did a silent mental countdown. When the last number passed, Treasure Hunter Rat sprung out of the flax clothing with a whoosh like a fired arrow and pounced onto the nearest vulture. At the same time, Lin Ke also flipped around and got up, forcibly relying on his willpower to overcome his stiff state. The vultures received such a huge fright when they saw this that they flapped their wings to take off into the sky. However, Treasure Hunter Rat had already pounced onto one of them and was biting stubbornly on the muscle connecting the wings to the body, interfering with its flight. The other 2 vultures let out squawks of extreme astoundment and flew away. The last one flapped its wings as hard as it could but could only struggle in mid-air. Lin Ke rushed forward with his quick reflexes and tackled the vulture to the ground, pressing both his knees hard against its wings. The next second, Lin Ke stowed his pistol and brandished the sharp dagger. The dagger pierced right through the vulture's wings, pinning the vulture to the ground like a nail. When Forbes, who was hiding at the rock in the distance, saw his boss getting up, he slung the backpack onto his back at once and hurried over at the speed of a 100-meter dash. Lin Ke didn't dare to delay. The vulture underneath him was half a meter long. When its wings were spread open, it reached approximately 1.2 meters wide. After receiving the system notification that he had temporarily subdued it, he took the opportunity to carry out synthesis immediately. Level 2 Vulture, Adult, plus Gravel, 100 grams, equals 90% success rate. Synthesis consumes 20 health points. Synthesize? Yes/no. Lin Ke's eyes lit up. The success rate this time was very high, though the HP consumption had also doubled. Since there was no conflict between the living organism and the material, Lin Ke didn't plan on carrying out Plan B either. Instead, he directly chose to synthesize them. 20 HP? So be it. It is a ferocious beast that can fly, after all. It is even such a big size. It is understandable that it will consume more HP. The gravel that he had casually grabbed with his left hand was gradually absorbed. Sticky blood threads came out of his other hand that was holding the vulture down and quickly enveloped the struggling vulture. The blood cocoon that formed this time was very big, easily as big as when one held their arms in an encircling position. Along with it was also an increase in incubation period. This time, it was as long as 5 minutes. Lin Ke laid unmoving at the side and panted heavily. This out where the vulture's plan really wasn't something meant to be done by a human. In this instant, he could only feel a constant stinging pain on his cheeks as though a million needles were jabbing him. Due to a long period of inactivity, the blood flow in his body had also become very slow and carried a sensation that felt like he was being electrocuted. In the sky, the two startled vultures squawked in protest and dispersed after circling for a moment. Forbes panted heavily as he ran over from afar. When he saw that Boss's cheeks had been roasted red, and his lips were so chapped that quite a bit of dead skin had become visible, he opened his backpack without a second word and fished out the water bottle. "Boss! Hurry, have some water." Lin Ke took the water bottle from him and poured the water into his mouth bit by bit, moistening his dry lips. The sweet, clear water flowed bit by bit into his throat as if it were a water channel that had finally encountered rain after a long drought and radiated with the glow of life once more. The water entered his gut, and an indescribable wave of strength instantly flowed into every part of his body. It was only in this instant that Lin Ke felt like he was half alive again, and he began to pant heavily. Forbes used his big body to block out the sun and created a cool, shaded area for Lin Ke to hide from the sun. Then, he looked at the huge blood cocoon. He couldn't help but ask, "Boss, will it work this time?" Lin Ke nodded. There was a 90% success rate this time. Also, with how he had been under the blazing sun for 4 to 5 hours, he was going to have a mental breakdown if it didn't succeed. Lin Ke slowly turned his head and cast a glance in the direction of true north. Machinery City had already left a long time ago. After 4 to 5 hours, the machinery holy cult soldiers nearby the Grand Canal must already be more or less gone, too. 5 minutes passed very quickly. Changes gradually began to show in the blood cocoon. A sharp yellow beak jabbed a hole into the blood cocoon and sliced it open like a knife. Right on the heels of it, a valiant and heroic head extended from inside the blood cocoon and turned about to examine the new world. Monster synthesis is complete. Obtain Sand Condor, White. Monster stats. Name, Sand Condor, Adult. Quality, White. Race, Accipitra D. Stats, Sand Elemental Affinity. Level, 2. Initial skill, Engulfing Sand LV1, the Sand Elemental Affinity distinctive of the Sand Condor gives its wings extraordinary abilities. When the Sand Condor flaps its wings to sense sand elements, it creates a whirlwind of sand measuring a diameter of 5 meters. It can blur the enemy's line of sight and reduce their movement speed. Lasts 15 seconds. Limited to 2 uses a day. Initial skill 2, Eagle-Eyed LV1, the Sand Condor possesses superior motion perception, allowing it to detect traces of all moving living things within a radius of 5,000 meters. It's just that. Appraisal, as everyone knows, a vulture is a condor. Lin Ke broke into a grin, causing the prickling pain on his cheeks to intensify. However, he was incredibly delighted inside and was very happy despite his pain. The pet's name this time was honestly rather surprising. Lin Ke initially thought that it would be named something along the lines of Desert Vulture, but when the system notification appeared. Excuse him, but he didn't manage to hold it in. He was laughing uproariously, but he had tears at the corners of his eyes from the pain. As expected, when it came to naming, the system was the most well-read and profound after all. Lin Ke initially thought that all pets started out in the infancy stage after synthesis and that their level would also be changed to level 1. However, the Sand Condor had shattered his initial conjecture. It was already in the adult stage the moment it was born, it had also retained its original level. It was only now that Lin Ke finally realized just how powerful this synthesis function of his was. Should he be lucky enough to catch high-level creatures in the future, not only would they be strengthened after synthesis, but they would also retain their original level. Wouldn't that mean that his future pets could directly enter high-intensity battles and save him the trouble of nurturing them? This thing is practically a divine weapon. As long as I have enough HP, I can synthesize pets of the same level. A strengthened pet of the same level is already incredibly powerful, but if I can form a team of pets like that. Just the thought of that scene alone. Lin Kei's eyes shone brightly. He had already photoshopped the scene of Paul the Great Emperor's valiant and heroic form engaged in a fierce battle in outer space into himself. Lin Kei took a very close look at Sand Condor's description this time. With regards to Sand Condor's first skill, engulfing sand, it was completely a support type skill. It also had a very clear function to the skill's wide range. It could be said to be a necessity during escapes and ambushes. The second skill, Eagle-Eyed, was a passive skill. Lin Kei understood the first half of the description. It was akin to a wide-range radar in mid-air. As long as the object was alive and moving, Sand Condor would be able to detect it clearly. However, the last line of "it's just that" made Lin Kei somewhat nervous. He could still remember how Gerbil's description had only contained a line of "problems may surface in the future," yet it had given Lin Kei the painful experience of bringing up a son for someone else. Now, Sand Condor's skill description actually even contained an ellipsis, which seriously made him rather nervous. Although he didn't know what it was definitely nothing good. Lin Kei looked through the monster stats a few times. In the end, he muttered to himself, although there are some dodgy aspects, at least it won't leave me this time, right? When Lin Kei exited the system interface, he noticed that Sand Condor was standing on the ground motionlessly, as though it were a real sand sculpture one. In contrast, Forbes, who was standing at the side, was chuckling in a silly manner. "Forbes, what are you laughing at?" "Hee, I saw boss laugh just now, which means that there won't be any more problems when we cross the Grand Canal this time. So, I'm very happy, too." Lin Kei let out a snort of laughter and replied, "You're pretty smart." Then, he raised his arm. Sand Condor flew onto his arm the very next second. It was actually pretty heavy. "Sand Condor, go along Goria Grand Canal now and do some scouting. I want to know the situation along the Grand Canal." Lin Kei lifted his arm after he spoke. Sand Condor flapped its wings and flew into the sky after a brief moment. This time, in order to avoid accidents when they crossed the river, Lin Kei decided to give Sand Condor's Eagle-Eyed a try first. He also had it survey the situation around the Grand Canal in advance along the way. He would act again after he received a detailed report on the enemy's movements. 5 minutes later. "What the F***ck? Lin Kei was astounded. 4S. Chapter 10, Crossing the Grand Canal. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Lin Kei never expected that Sand Condor was not only a type of creature, but it also had personality. Sand Condor patrolled the coast of Goria Grand Canal. However, when it came back to relay information to Lin Kei finally understood the meaning of the unfinished phrase "except," in the skill description. Sand Condor spoke intermittently and always fell into a daze mid-sentence, as though it had forgotten what to say or what it had seen. If it was said that it had investigated 100%, then only 30% was relayed. Of course, if you thought that Lin Kei would be surprised after discovering the secret of Sand Condor, you were quite wrong. Although Sand Condor's memory was not good, the information about the most critical positions was successfully remembered and conveyed to Lin Kei. The reason why Lin Kei shouted "what the hell" was because several teams of machinery holy cult soldiers were guarding the two ends of Goria Grand Canal, where it was the easiest to cross. This was a little outrageous. Machinery City was obviously gone. By right, most of the machinery holy cult soldiers should have followed suit as well. Unexpectedly, the patrols and defenses of the area were heavier. Machinery holy cult soldiers were even on both sides of Goria Grand Canal. They were in a bind now. After returning from its trip, Sand Condor immediately laid down on the gobi and gasped for air, not wanting to stand. It was simply too lazy. Lin Kei thought for a moment and got up slowly. He decided to charge through the defenses. If he did not change their course in time and replenish their source of life, he and Forbes would die of thirst and become white skeletons in the gobi. Lin Ke preferred to walk into danger because taking a detour was too risky. It also left very little room for mistakes. On the other hand, these machinery holy cult soldiers walking in the desert along Goria Grand Canal had the lowest combat power within machinery holy cult. It was more appropriate to call them followers and believers rather than machinery holy cult's regular army. Even the immortals who were into cultivating immortality also knew about this. These patrol soldiers were equivalent to odd job laborers. They could only be promoted to external disciples after they performed well and had their contributions evaluated. They were pilgrims and machinery fanatics from various places. After expressing the desire to join machinery holy cult, Machinery City would bestow a basic microchip onto them. Implanting the chip in their body or setting the chip as the core of their armor meant that they were branded by Machinery Holy Cult. However, this was only the first step to join Machinery Holy Cult. The next step was a more rigorous assessment, where one had to complete the various tasks assigned by the cult. Points would be awarded for each task completed. When one accumulated enough points, they would officially be promoted to a member of Machinery Holy Cult. The benefit of being a full member was that you could enter Machinery City and enjoy, in accordance to one's contribution and level, the various mechanical mysteries and knowledge hidden in it. This was why so many Machinery Holy Cult soldiers were following behind as Machinery City traveled along Goria Grand Canal. To be precise, they were not Machinery Holy Cult's official force, but a group of fanatics full of extreme thoughts. Considering they had only basic chips and were a motley group, they were not very threatening. With the assistance of treasure hunter Rat and Sand Condor, he could still safely cross the Grand Canal as long as he was careful. Lin Ke cut a few slices of beef with a dagger. He stuffed some into his mouth and chewed it to replenish energy. He also gave some to treasure hunter Rat and Sand Condor. Treasure hunter Rat swooped onto the beef, wanting to devour it. However, it realized that Sand Condor did not come and fight over it after taking 2 bites. Hence, it glanced back curiously. It saw Sand Condor still lazily lying on the ground. Sand Condor's neck was drooping weakly, and its eyes were dazed and half-closed. After taking 2 bites, Treasure Hunter Rat suddenly felt that the beef in its paws was not that fragrant. With a light sigh, it dragged the beef in front of Sand Condor. Alas, it went all the way for this fellow. Not only did it have to help its master detect and avoid danger, but it also had to help him feed the lazy Sand Condor. Stressed. Sand Condor was really lazy. It had smelled the cooked beef, and its eyes were gradually brightening. However, it remained motionless. Squeak, squeak. Treasure Hunter Rat placed the beef in front of Sand Condor. It then tore a piece off and ate it by the side. Sand Condor remained motionless. Only its mouth opened, consuming the beef bit by bit into its stomach. Forbes had waited for 4 to 5 hours at the front. He felt that his body was almost collapsing. Eat so that you will have the strength to cross the river. Lin Ke glanced at the time. It was already 4:30 in the afternoon. When it was almost 6 o'clock in the Grand Canal, the time would be just right. After some tidying up, they set off and advanced again. They had no option of retreating. They had to charge across Goria Grand Canal in one resolute attempt. Although Sand Condor was tired and lazy, it immediately got up once Lin Ke issued it an order. It did not procrastinate, carrying out its order seriously. Except that Sand Condor's brain. Alas, for the sake of its serious attitude, let's not mention this anymore. At most, it would probably end up patrolling a few more times. The group was closing in on Goria Grand Canal. Lin Ke's Glock pistol was already in his hand while Forbes was bent over slightly, ready to sprint 100 meters anytime. The sun gradually sunk towards the west, turning from scorching hot to warm. Its color became red as if blood was added, looking like it was signaling an impending bloody battle. Sand Condor traveled back and forth between Goria Grand Canal and the Goba several times and passed back more information, allowing them to piece together a complete picture of the troops stationed at the front line. Sand Condor, you don't have to come back the next round. If there's anything, I will notify you as soon as possible. Lin Ke and his party were within 5 kilometers of Goria Grand Canal. If Sand Condor continued to land several times, it would be suspicious. Hence, Lin Ke allowed it to return to the sky. If they could avoid the patrolling machinery holy cult soldiers, they could cross the canal quietly. If they were found, they would need Sand Condor to descend from the sky and assist them. Little treasure, time for you to shine. Lin Ke stretched out his hand. Treasure Hunter Rat then ran along his arm and jumped onto the sand to lead the way. After Sand Condor relayed information several times, Lin Ke had a rough idea of how machinery holy cult's fanatical followers were stationed along Goria Grand Canal. He was certain that the fanatical followers operated in groups of 5. The basic chip distributed by machinery holy cult was also known as the Individual Range Joint Combat Type 1 Processing Chip. It required 5 people to activate the program together for maximum effect. These followers did not dare to disobey the orders of Machinery City. Naturally, they would strictly carry their orders out. In the information transmitted by Sand Condor, there was a group of fanatical followers every 3 kilometers. Lin Ke also understood that the basic chip's cooperation range was 200 meters, which meant that the longest length of each team's formation was 1 kilometer. Hence, Lin Ke and the others had a 2-kilometer-long opening to navigate through. The evening sky represented the sun's final struggle. Without the brilliance of the sun, the sky's color became gentle and soft. The huge orange disk on the horizon extended Lin Ke's and Forbes' shadows by tenfold. When the sun had yet to set completely, casually walking through the Gobi was as conspicuous as a fashion show. Thus, Lin Ke and Forbes crawled along the ground instead. Although their speed was much lower, this was the safest option. Moreover, their flax clothing looked no different from the stones in the Gobi under the sunset glow. Nobody would realize something was amiss. At this rate, we will be able to reach Goria Grand Canal after sunset. Now that the conditions are favorable to us, we have a very good chance of crossing the Grand Canal. The sun gradually disappeared from the horizon, leaving only a few struggling light rays along the western sky. Forbes, you have to follow my instructions from now on. Don't make any noise except when walking. If you attract people from the machinery holy cult, none of us can run away any longer. However, we can escape as long as we can cross the Grand Canal. Boss, don't worry. I won't create any noise. Forbes smiled at the thought of being able to escape. Right, one more thing, Don T, open your eyes too wide and don't laugh. The Gobi was shrouded by the night, and Forbes perfectly blended into it. Even if he stood in front of Lin Ke, it was difficult to detect him. However, as long as he opened his eyes wide and smiled, his big white teeth and protruding pupils would be like fireflies in the darkness, odds with high beams, and lighthouses along the coast. It was easy for people to discover him. Forbes immediately closed his mouth and narrowed his eyes, completely blending into the night. After 2 days of interacting with Forbes, Lin Ke understood this fellow's character. Survival was the most important thing for Forbes. As long as the matter was related to life preservation, Forbes was absolutely meticulous in its execution. Very interesting, very in line with Lin Ke's thinking. Before he knew it, Lin Ke had already come within 2 kilometers of the Grand Canal, which was now well within reach. You have triggered the E-level mission escape from the desolate Gobi. Accept/reject. Mission prompt: Goria Grand Canal is the lifeline of Machinery City. Hence, there are many fanatics and followers guarding it along the way. Cross the Grand Canal and arrive at Weeping Valley, which is at the periphery of Machinery Holy Cult's sphere of influence. Officially escape the wasteland gangs and Machinery Holy Cult's sphere of influence and discard your identity as a slave. Mission reward: 5,000 experience points, status change, slave to refugee. Lin Ke accepted this mission that provided experience without any hesitation. On. Lin Ke and Forbes advanced forward as Treasure Hunter Rat led the way. Sand Condor turned into a spirit in the dark, quietly hovering in the air as it waited for its master's orders. Soon, treasure hunter rat sensed metal. 1, 2, the number was increasing. Lin Ke and Forbes moved forward slowly. They stopped 500 meters from the Grand Canal and waited patiently. They had been waiting all day. Surely, they could wait for a few more minutes. 5 fanatical followers kept a distance of about 200 meters from each other as they patrolled along the Grand Canal. Because of the intelligence sent by treasure hunter rat, Lin Ke had more detailed information. Among these 5 fanatical followers, 3 had strong metallic auras while the other 2's metallic auras were relatively weaker. Lin Ke deduced that 3 of them should have exoskeleton armor, while the remaining 2 only had some mechanical parts. 20 minutes later, the 5 people disappeared from treasure hunter rat's range. Quick! Take the chance to cross the Grand Canal quickly now. Lin Ke got up first and moved forward quickly. Forbes followed closely behind, closing his mouth tightly and not daring to widen his eyes too much. The 2 soon arrived at the Grand Canal and followed the slope, which led to Goria Grand Canal's water channel. At night, there wasn't a lot of water in the Grand Canal. The current glided over the uneven terrain, and the water level did not exceed knee level. This was because the Grand Canal was connected to the sea. At night, the sea level receded due to tidal action. Hence, the water level in the canal receded as well, making the current not as strong as during the day. The sky was beautiful. The moon was hidden, and the stars were bright. This was the favorable conditions mentioned by Lin Ke earlier. Lin Ke walked in front with a sense of familiarity while Forbes followed behind. Soon, they crossed the 500-meter wide Grand Canal. Finally, as the treasure hunter rat gritted its teeth and climbed the slope, it sensed the surroundings one more time, finding no fanatical followers in the area. Victory is in sight. Let's move quickly. Lin Ke straightened his back and quickened his pace. When Forbes heard this, the corners of his mouth raised inadvertently. Halfway through, he immediately realized what he was doing and quickly covered his mouth with his hand in fear of exposing his big white teeth. Lin Ke was so eager that he moved as quickly as a flying arrow. He had crossed the Goria Grand Canal and was not far from Sand City. At this moment, Forbes suddenly fell to the ground with a groan. Half of his body plunged into the Gobi. Lin Ke was so shocked his face went pale. The night in the Gobi was quiet, without any unusual sounds. This sound, like a boulder sinking in a pond, made ripples in the Gobi. Squeak, squeak. Treasure hunter rat also began to squeak, indicating that it sensed metallic auras rushing here quickly. Exposed. 4S.